All right, we're already at 95, 96 participants. All right, this is great. Yeah, so it's 4:30 now, so I guess we'll just get started. So a quick introduction, if you never heard of Superposition Toronto. So basically we are a student-led nonprofit dedicated to bridging the gender gap in STEM, and we do this through bringing educational opportunities and creating supportive communities. And yeah, so for today, you're attending our STEM University Programs panel, and we have 8 incredible panelists for our Canadian Universities panel currently. This is also being live streamed on YouTube, so if you have any friends who aren't able to get into the meeting, you can tell them that it's also being live streamed on YouTube. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to my 2 MCs for tonight, Avi and Angela Lee.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela Lee, and I am an operations coordinator here at Superposition.
And my name is Avinash Dhanaraj, one of Superposition Toronto's communications coordinators.
And we will be your MCs tonight. To start off the program, we will be having the panelists introduce themselves so we can learn a little bit more about who they are and what they do. Edwin, why don't you start us off?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I think someone from your committee invited me, so that was really nice of them. So I'm probably the oldest person here. I'm kind of a grandpa among this panel, but I did my undergrad at McMaster University. I studied biology, psychology, and mathematics, and then completed a master's degree at McGill University, studying neuroscience, specifically the pathophysiology of Alzheimer's disease. And then took a gap year to actually be a high school teacher. So that was kind of like a little fun fact. And then now I'm currently in my second year of medical school at the University of Toronto.
Okay, let's have Shelley introduce now.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelley. I don't have as many qualifications as Edwin. I'm currently in my 3rd year of the Bachelor of Health Sciences program at McMaster. I'm actually a Stephen Lewis alumni for those who live in Vaughan and know where that school is. I graduated in 2018. So currently, as I said, I'm in my 3rd year. Some of the things I'm currently doing, I'm currently employed as a teaching assistant in the anatomy education program at McMaster, and I'm facilitating the 2nd year anatomy and physiology course. I'm also doing some clinical research on the side, both outside of school and for my 3rd year project course. And some of the things I'm researching are both pain management and looking at biological markers of polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Awesome. Let's Lucy now.
Hi everyone, my name is Lucy. I'm a recent graduate from Richmond Hill High School, and I am also in health sciences at McMaster, but I'm in my 1st year. And I founded a nonprofit organization called PUMP, or Prospective Medical Professionals. That's something I'm continuing to do in university. But in high school, I guess since there's not much I can talk about with university being online, I ran a fundraiser for a local women's shelter and participated in different clubs like DECA, HOSA, and school band.
Next up, Eleanor.
Hi, my name is Eleanor. I'm in my 2nd year of Med-Sci/Business Administration at the School of Ivy and at Western. Like Lucy, I also graduated from Richmond Hill High School 2 years ago, or 1 year ago actually. My pathway is a little bit different from everyone else since I am doing half STEM, half non-STEM. So if any of you guys are interested in more interdisciplinary studies, you can feel free to ask me some questions about that. It's a pretty interesting double degree, and I highly recommend considering it if you guys are interested in science and other fields that you can pursue. In high school, I was also in band with Lucy, and I was also the captain of the swim team, which was really cool. And I don't do that anymore in university because of timing issues, but I do pursue them a little bit more leisurely. And in the summer last year, I actually worked for a biotechnology company, and I was a marketing and lab assistant intern. So those are just some opportunities that are really cool. If you do a double degree with business and science, you get to pursue kind of 2 ends of a company. So if you guys are interested in that, please shoot me some questions later on.
Awesome. And now Summer.
Hi, everyone. I am in my 2nd year at UST, and I'm doing a degree in which I am specializing in human health and disease and doing a minor in immunology. Right now, I am working on my own research with Dr. Bass at UST, where we're completing research on anxiety and the use of probiotics as treatment. I'm also doing an internship with a Canadian charity called Hemoglobal, where I am the vice president for finance and sponsorship. So I love doing that. And I graduated from St. Teresa of Lisieux in Richmond Hill in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And like everyone else, I was pretty involved then. I'm not as involved now in as many clubs. I was in DECA and HOSA, and it just gave good experience to see where my interests lie. And yeah.
And now Chloe?
Hi, my name is Chloe. I'm currently my second year of engineering science at the University of Toronto. I guess I don't really have a major yet. I don't choose it till third year, so I'm still debating between robotics or electrical and computer engineering. But I came in with the interest of going into aerospace. So if that's still something like you're not sure about what STEM field you want to go to, maybe in engineering, then feel free to talk to me around that. I graduated from Loretto Abbey in Toronto, and I guess, yeah, like in high school, I loved art. So I loved being creative. So I thought that would be a cool way to bring in my love for STEM as well into that. So that's why I went into engineering.
Cool. And now Jonathan?
Hey guys, I'm Jonathan. I'm a second year student at University of Waterloo, also a Richmond Hill High School grad. So yeah, I guess what I'm working on. Last term I did a full stack internship at a Boston startup called Fractal Computers, and learned a lot about cloud streaming technologies and building really cool software from scratch. So in high school, I was really interested in tech. I founded a computer engineering club, and I went to, I think, like 30 hackathons, which is pretty fun. So yeah, if you have any questions about working on a startup or starting your own startup, or anything related to coding and technology, I'd love to help.
Great. And now Alan.
Hello, everyone. I am currently a second year computer science student at the University of Waterloo. Currently on co-op right now, working from home at Genesis Labs, where I'm doing quality assurance development as well as full stack. And outside of university, I'm also an organizer on Hack the North. Like Jonathan mentioned, if you guys are interested in hackathons, we're some pretty good people to reach out to. I know Jonathan has a very strong portfolio. In high school, I graduated from Bayview Secondary School. In my grade 12 year, I was one of 2 York Region District School Board student trustees. That was between 2018 2019. Worked with the Ontario College of Teachers, and a few other organizations. I was also the student council president at Bayview in my grade 12 year. And the last thing that I did was I was part of the Royal Canadian Air Cadet program. I was with 778 Banshee Squadron Richmond Hill. And through the program, I was honored to receive scholarships to earn both my glider pilot's license and my private pilot's license. And yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you. And let's start off with some questions. So why did you choose this university and what was your major of interest? Let's start off with Edwin again.
So the first question is which one? I guess like for the high school students, probably most pertinent is McMaster. I picked it because I was debating between a smaller university versus a bigger university like University of Toronto. I've been giving talks to several high school programs like this. So my biggest tip for all of you that are applying to high school applying to university is to first think about city, location, and program. I think every program has a standardized courses. So you have your biology, chemistry, and I'm sure some of the panelists that are in their first years kind of can vouch for me that they take generally the same number of courses. The major differences, and I think that will affect your experience in university, unfortunately with COVID is a little different, but with the social aspect is whether or not you're able to make those strong friendships and strong networks. I find that maybe for me personally, the bigger universities like University of Toronto is not necessarily the most conducive for maybe finding a strong network of friends. And again, this is just from what my friends have told me. Even McGill University is sometimes a little bit difficult. So McMaster was a kind of nice little bubble for me that I thought I could gravitate towards. And honestly, I loved the program. I loved the campus. Everything was kind of within reach. Downtown Hamilton's a little sketch, so don't ever go there alone. Other than that, the campus is amazing. But if you ask me about graduate school and medical school or professional school, my answer is going to be a little different then. But for undergrad, I think for me personally, a small university, a good cohort of students within the program is kind of key for me.
Awesome. So let's move on to Shelly. Same question.
So I chose McMaster for similar reasons. So firstly, I was not interested in applying to schools out of province, both for financial reasons and just in case. I did want to come home once in a while. So Hamilton's the good in-between where it's an hour and a half away. So my parents can't come and bug me every weekend, but also it's not too bad to hop on a go bus and go home. As Edwin said, I absolutely love the community feel of McMaster. It's its own like isolated campus rather than having buildings dispersed around the city like you might find in downtown Toronto. I was also considering student housing. So although I was thinking about going to U of T, I realized that maybe the commute would be not ideal and I may want to live downtown closer to campus at some point. And I found that just living in Hamilton in a student house would be far more affordable for me compared to try and find a place closer to Toronto. But I think one of the main reasons why I chose McMaster is because of the program. So health sciences really appealed to me because I was really interested in health science specifically and not general sciences. So I was able to go into university without having to take some of the general science courses that you may find in other programs. So I didn't have to take physics or math or any additional courses that I wasn't super interested in. So my main tip of advice is, besides just looking at the program and its core values and I guess what people do with that degree at the end, look at some of the courses that you might be doing in first or second year, because most of those are going to be mandatory rather than elective based. So if you find that you're okay with most of the courses that you're going to take, I think that's a good guideline to go by with, I guess, choosing a specific program. I also found that with health sciences, we have really small classes and problem-based learning, which really appealed to me. That was something I did a little bit in high school, and I always appreciated being able to know my professors more closely or know my classmates and peers more closely. And then finally, I guess, just being in a smaller faculty, you get to know a lot of the faculty better, as well as your peers, not only in your year, but in upper year and younger years. So I think that was also a really cool aspect of my program.
Awesome. Now on to Lucy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Shelly said. We're on the same program, so definitely a lot of the reasons overlap. For me, I feel like it's a bit different. I can't really comment on how it's panned out because a lot of the reasons, like I chose McMaster because I want to live on res. I didn't want to go to a school in Toronto, but then that didn't pan out because of COVID. So I guess I can't really comment too much about student life. But for academics, I really wanted to pick a program for me that I felt would be more specific because I didn't want to be taking general science courses. I knew I wanted to avoid that. Really did not like math and physics in high school. So that was really appealing to me for McMaster. And also just the community was really great. Like the moment I got my acceptance, I was added to a bunch of group chats. The upper years were really friendly. So that definitely swayed me a bit.
Great, now on to Simmer.
Hi, okay. So I'm a little contrary to what everyone said because I'm obviously a little biased for U of T. Yeah, it is a really big community. It's #1 in the world. There's thousands and thousands of students there. But that being said, there's also that many resources for you to get to know everyone there. So yeah, I go into a lecture con hall and there's like 2,000 kids and I'm like, oh my God, peace out, goodbye. But you can form conversations just based on that, like, oh my God, this class size is so big, and that's it. Now you have someone to talk to. So that was one thing I liked because everyone has similar interests. And I also really liked that it was close to home. I didn't have to live on res or live off campus. I can commute back and forth. It's not that bad. It's just an hour on most days. So that's what I liked for that. And according to the life sciences program, I actually did like having general first year programs because when you go into U of T in your first year for life science, you take all of the general courses. So bio, chem, math, physics, and it gives you an opportunity to learn what you might like and what you might not like. So I learned that I very much do not like calculus. So I knew I wasn't going to do a program in which I'd have to take calculus again and again in the next upper years. So that being said, then at the end of the year, you can decide what program. So you have a full year to decide what you want to decide on learning on for the next 4 years of your life. So a lot of my friends chose physiology or immunology. There's so many different things that U of T offers for you to study. So that's what I really love. And lastly, just more about the location too. U of T is affiliated with all the hospitals downtown. So every single time you'll go on the website for any random hospital to look for a research position, you'll always see it's affiliated with U of T, every single one. So that being said, there's a lot of ways to connect and create your network there. And that's how I also got my research position in first year. So yeah, there's like world-class researchers. You have so many opportunities, even though it's a big school, but that's just what university is. You're going from high school where you're like, you know, big in like a little pond, but now you're in university where you're a small, tiny fish in like a humongous sea. So it's just about getting used to it and then making the most out of what you have. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now on to Eleanor.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm kind of the opposite of Simmer. I did want to go as far as I could from home. So I picked London, which is 2.5 hours away from Richmond Hill. Not that I wanted to escape my family, but I really just wanted to gain a lot of independence in university and just kind of experience going out into a whole city far, far, far away. And a big reason why I picked Western, I actually kind of came here on an impulse. I was like this close to going to Queen's and to go into health sci and become a doctor, but there's always this voice nagging me in the back of my head, like, oh, but you never really tried anything else yet. And I knew Western had like the Ivy program where you were able to do a dual degree. And I know like everyone thinks Western is a party school, and it is, but I will bash those stereotypes right now. No one will force you to party. Like, I am not a party person. I'm more of just like hanging out with my friends, and it's totally accepted. Like, no one will peer pressure you into anything that you don't really like, which is another aspect I really loved about Western is it's a really social school. Like, clubs are so big and so important in this school. And in my first year, I joined so many just because it was like there's so many opportunities to gain leadership, be a director, be a VP. And I really liked that part of Western too, just the fact that all the students were on the grind to be in a club and get to know each other. And I really liked that. But more on like the dual degree thing, I kind of realized I didn't want to be a doctor. And I know there's a lot of life science students here, as well as an MD student in med school. So I was kind of thinking more of, I want to be in the healthcare industry, but I didn't necessarily want to do all those other years of schooling and be a doctor. So my career goals are more so in healthcare management, healthcare administration, healthcare consulting. So really combining the business skills with the science and medicine skills as well. So in the summer, as I mentioned before, I was able to work in marketing and in the lab, and I got really interested into like healthcare promotion. So if any of you guys are really interested in working in the science fields, but namely the life science fields, but not necessarily going into higher education in like medical school or dental school, medical professionals are great and they're amazing and super needed. But I feel like health promotion and healthcare consulting is also a very important part of, you know, the career in the field. And I feel like in high school, no one really talks about those things. It's like, if you want to go into life science, you go to McMaster Health Sci and you become a doctor. You go to U of T Life Sci and you become a doctor. So it was really interesting at Western because there is an actual like health science program here, which is mostly focused on the things that I'm interested in, like consulting, management, more the business aspect of science. So I just feel like Western really incorporated that really well and produces a lot of students out there who are interested in the interdisciplinary studies and pursue careers which combine the two factors.
That's great. Now on to Chloe.
Yeah, so meanwhile, like everyone's here in like life science and health sciences. I'm just like engineering. But like I really loved I think I said in my intro, but I was super indecisive about what engineering field I wanted to go into. So I knew I was like, okay, maybe I won't pick like a specific field when I apply for a program. And that's like the reason why I didn't really like want to go maybe into like something like aerospace specifically. Yet, just because of my indecisiveness. And I also kind of was just like, I really want to explore so many different things. I was kind of curious. So like my interests are like really broad, and it still is. Like I love just doing random things on the side. And that was the reason I chose like a really broad program. But specifically with engineering science, I think the majors were really interesting. There's like newer majors like machine intelligence now that's super hyped. And then there's also weird niche ones like math, stats, and finance, which like personally I wouldn't go into, but I know friends who are like super interested in that and they're like going into consulting for that reason. So there's always like something niche in there to go into that you might find interesting, and I thought that was super cool. It was also the whole like high school mentality where like, oh my god, I want to try a challenge. Yeah, I don't know if I'd still do that now, but it's still like it was just like something exciting to look forward to, and that's why I chose engineering science. Um, and then specifically with U of T, I loved it for the community. So besides like the whole like there's a big school and is like you're just a number, engineering is very small compared to like the rest of the school. So instead of me having like lectures in like Con Hall where you fit thousands of people, we'd be in like one of those smaller lecture halls where it's like less than 200 sometimes. So, and since like everyone in your program is doing the same courses type of mindset, you're all like suffering together, and that's like really cute in engineering. So it's just the whole like, we're gonna do problem sets together because it's due tonight. So we'll just be in like our common room doing like a problem set and like struggling because like today, literally I'm like doing labs with some friend because it's like due today. So it's like that whole like, you're doing it together vibe. And then I think like U of T has like a huge tradition in engineering. So like prank culture is huge. There's a lot of pranks right in first year, first day, you're pranked. You didn't hear that from me, but like that was what happened to me, and I still get to help organize pranks for the new incoming year. So that's always super exciting to do. And yeah, I love that whole culture and vibe. And then traditions, like it's like the engineering school at U of T has been there for like years and years and years. That there's alumni that I talked to in my first year, and they're like graduated, they're gone, but they're like there to give advice and be like, yeah, good luck. um, but they're always there, and they always like provide you anything you need. So I always reach out to upper years, especially now when I'm still choosing my major. And I'm not sure. They're like, hey, if you choose my major, I'll give you these notes. And I'm like, maybe. So it's like that whole culture is what attracted me into my program.
Awesome. And now on to Jonathan.
Yeah, so for me, it was like three main things that attracted me. So number one, the cohort system, the second, the extracurriculars, and number three, co-ops. So go over them real quickly. So yeah, engineering in Canadian universities is most likely like always going to be a cohort system. So what attracted me with that was in software engineering, you're just surrounded with like-minded people who are interested in coding, building stuff with tech. I find that to be a really like energizing experience because like you can just go up to like other people who are building projects and be like, hey, want to work on it together? Or like just sometimes we just have hack nights or something. It's a really fun experience. And specifically with the software engineering cohort, we have a really nice support system. There's an organization called the Software Engineering Society. They organize a bunch of socials, resume critiques, one-on-ones, coffee chats, all the stuff. I think we recently launched and like we're hosting a Minecraft server for software engineering Waterloo. So if you like Minecraft, that's also a good reason to come, I guess. So yeah, that has really helped me with like my course load and just feeling like a sense of belonging in school. And extracurriculars was also really good. I liked Waterloo's variety of design teams. So they have Waterloop, Autonomous, Rocketry. I could list like 20 others, but you get to go and like you get to walk in and work on like a really big project, and you have mentors, and it's really exciting getting to see it like in a competition or whatever. So that's a huge plus. And finally, I guess co-op is really cool. Waterloo's co-op program is pretty renowned. They have their own system and there's tons of employers on it, and you're able to kind of get a better chance at like finding an internship at a company that you like. So that was the main reason I kind of chose Waterloo over another program, like for example, Carleton's dev degree at Shopify. You want that variety of experiences at various companies. So with Waterloo, you get around like 5 or 6 co-ops by the time you graduate, which is like a ton of like diverse workplace environments. So like, I think that has been a huge plus for me overall.
Awesome. Now on to Alan.
All right. For me, my process in picking a school and a program was a pretty long and winded process. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did a lot of things throughout high school. One of those things being the IB program at Bayview. That restricted me to only doing 2 out of the 3 sciences. I guess from when I started high school, I was planning to go into pre-med. My top choice was McMaster Health Science, and that was the path that I went down. Throughout high school, I did DECA, business became an interest. I also got into aviation through cadets. I was also considering, joining the armed forces as a pilot, go to RMC, Top Gun stuff. And a lot of my friends are doing that now. Kind of jealous seeing them doing that, but different paths for different people. So I think what it came down to for me, I was picking between, I didn't get into McMaster Health Science. So it was either Western MedSci with Ivy or Waterloo CS at the very end. I also applied to a few places in the States. I think what really sealed the deal for me was I had never touched programming that much. And like Eleanor said, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to pigeonhole myself into going into pre-med. And like Jonathan said, the co-op program at Waterloo is phenomenal. I guess one of the stereotypes or one of the jokes at Waterloo for CS, software, computer engineering students, it's Cali or bust, because everybody's trying to get jobs in California, San Francisco, New York, Seattle, and the amount of job experience that you can get, the variety, like Jonathan said, is just incredible. You can finish a 5-year program with your co-op degree or your co-op add-on, and many people find full-time jobs. The opportunities are pretty much limitless. You can work in whatever you want. Big tech, startups, fintech, the list goes on. So I thought that this would leave the most doors open if I wanted to go back into business or I guess like biotech, medtech, those doors would all be open to me.
Awesome. So the next question is, are there any extracurricular activities such as summer programs, internships, and volunteering that you participated in high school that helped you stand out? Starting with Edwin.
So let me see if I remember all the way back from high school. I think I remember doing some student council stuff. I wasn't as as adventurous or as keen as any of you. Honestly, all of you guys are way more impressive than I ever was. So kudos to you. I think what made me stand out was just that I didn't really pigeonhole myself. I think Alan and Eleanor said that really, really well. They didn't want to go into this, I guess, traditional pre-med program. I went into university never wanting to be a doctor. Actually, I detested pre-meds, to be honest, which sounds so hypocritical. And I think a lot of it was a variety of like parental pressure. So if you ever have any Asian stereotype parents, engineer, lawyer, doctor, other than that, you're just owned. So for me, I really wanted to choose a career that was really for me only, that made me happy. I experimented with a bunch of different clubs and allowed me to do a bunch of different opportunities. So I was able to be a TA. I think a few of you are also teaching assistants on the Panelist, and that allowed me to become give me some teaching experiences. And I was a lecturer at McGill for a couple of years, and I was a high school teacher during my gap year after my master's. So really is trying to find what you really are passionate about. I've had a lot of pre-med high school undergraduate students ask me what to get into medical school, and I always tell them, just do what you want to do. And for me, I never wanted to go to medical school, and it was something that I found out very last minute at the end of my master's that I really wanted to apply to. And it's okay to change your mind, whether or not you want to go into one professional program or outside of the professional program. I think a lot of people are really scared of figuring out your life right now, and you have no idea. And I sound like so old, but you guys are so young. I have friends that are still figuring out their careers. I'm still figuring out my careers. In terms of what I'm doing currently in medical school, it may not necessarily apply to you, but I think the gist still is relevant. I didn't go to medical school to be the best doctor. Sounds surprising, right? I still love teaching. I think me going to medicine gives me a platform to do things like this, to be an advocate for science education, social awareness. I'm really invested in working with low economic students. So I'm trying to do all these things in medical school where I'm finding little cracks and crannies within the program that I'm able to kind of invest myself into. So don't be scared of trying new things. It really is an opportunity to really explore your interests or finding things that you may not necessarily know that you are interested in. And if you find that those things lead to a different route, take it. I find university is the only opportunity that you'll ever get a chance to do that. You can always reapply to medical school if that's something you really are interested in, but you won't have an opportunity to explore crafts and like science and engineers and mathematics. And those are something that I maybe wish I did more about back in university. So yeah, take it every advantage that you can.
That's great. And now let's move on to Shelley.
So in terms of what I did in high school, I actually don't have a very extensive list of the clubs that I was a part of. I can probably like count max 4 across my entire high school career. But I think what was most important about what I did choose to do in high school, so some of that stuff included, I did DECA, I did student council, I was a student ambassador, but also I worked as an accounting clerk for 2 years, which sounds really weird because I'm not interested in studying business at all. It was just a job that I happened to find and I was good at it. So I did it during the summers and when I had March break and winter break. But I think that exploring a lot of different clubs allows you to kind of select what you like and what you didn't like. So that's a lot of what I did. I would experiment a lot with, different business clubs, and I wasn't really interested in pursuing a business degree, but I was just interested in having the experience of, going to a competition and being able to deliver a presentation effectively, learning effective public speaking skills, which are directly translated into what I'm doing right now in my undergraduate degree, where I have to give presentations for some of my courses. Like I essentially had an entire course in second year where my only type of evaluation that I had was presentations that I would do every other week on research that I did on my own. And so just doing things like that, even if they might not appear on your university application, because I know that a lot of science programs don't actually require you to write down any extracurriculars that you did when you apply to university. I think that it's more so important for yourself to figure out what you like, to figure out what you might want to pursue. And I think that's really important. And again, as Edwin said, the pre-med culture in university, especially in science programs, is huge. But don't think that I guess those are the only people that you're going to find in your university program. So a big misconception is that everyone in health science wants to go to medical school. And you know what, I guess it's more of a coincidence, because obviously if you're studying health sciences, it's more likely that you maybe want to go into a healthcare profession, but that's absolutely not the case for everyone in the program. I've changed my mind at least 10 times this year alone about what I want to do in the future, and just being able to explore different clubs and different courses, even such as like being able to explore health policy or health education through my TA position. I've been able to pick out and eliminate what I like and what I don't like. And I think that there's no timeline for you to work on. Like, it's not a race, you're not competing against anyone else. So I say just take the opportunities you can, because they might only come once. And don't seclude what you're doing. Again, just follow your own interests and what you find is fun and what you find is entertaining or beneficial for you. But again, don't be afraid to grasp those opportunities that come at you, because you don't know where they're going to take you in the future.
That's great. And now on to Lucy.
Yeah, so for me, even though I'm in the health side program, I don't want to do medicine, or at least I'm not sure. I feel like this is really important to note, because everyone I've met in the program, in my year at least, I guess the notion that McMaster Health Science is very pre-med is kind of accentuated in the fact that we have like an online environment. So it's hard to connect with people who you think have similar interests. So for me, I'm still in the middle of exploring. But in high school, I did think I was going to be on a pre-med track. And in fact, when I was applying to university, I also thought that I wanted to become a doctor, which is why I applied to primarily like health side, life side programs. But then I still ended up choosing McMaster, even though I decided I didn't want to do medicine. But back when I thought I wanted to do medicine, I did a lot of clubs like DECA, HOSA, I did band, I wrote for the school newspaper for a little bit. I also was a school prefect. And I did some other projects on the side, like like my nonprofit organization, Pump, and also ran a fundraiser for a local women's shelter. And for me, it kind of came down to like my extracurriculars. Like I didn't really end up enjoying DECA, HOSA, and all those other school clubs that much. I found it really tiring. I was like, gosh, I just want to like stop having to worry about like, oh, I need to tick off all the check boxes to apply to medical school. I need to, get like this many clubs on my resume. I need to get research. I was really tired of that. And I realized I really liked building my own projects a lot more. So right now, even though I'm not sure what I want to do, I'm kind of leaning towards entrepreneurship and biotech. I haven't really done wet lab research before. I've done dry lab at U of T for like a year, but that's still something I want to explore more in university. So I guess extracurriculars are really important in high school. It kind of shows you what you're actually interested in. So I'm really glad I started Pump, even though I did that with the mentality of going into medical school and all that, but it taught me something about myself that I think was really valuable.
That's cool. Let's move on to Eleanor.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the biggest thing for me, and you guys probably have heard of it in the panel and some of the participants, but there's something called SHAD, and I did that in my grade 11 summer. And I wasn't really sure what it was, but a lot of my friends did it the previous year, and I absolutely loved it. Like, for those of you who don't know, it's a 1-month summer program where you go to any university in Canada with like 50 students, and it's kind of exactly what I'm studying right now. It's a mix of science and business. So it's a bunch of STEM students, like all of us here, but you work together to kind of create like an entrepreneurship feasibility study, and you present it to like a panel. And this really taught me like the biggest thing was networking is so important. And but for all of you that are here today, you're doing a great job already being here and learning from us who have experience. Even me, like I'm in my second year of university, but just listening to every other person talk, like Edwin especially, who didn't know he wanted to do medical school and then went to medical school. That's really inspiring to me because I'm still unsure about that as well. So keep your opportunities open like that. And another thing with networking is in high school, it's the perfect time to do it. So I was in prom committee, I was the VP of like visual design, and I was also in band, and I was also in sports. And I think that really opened up like a bunch of different groups of people. Like my friends from band were definitely not, in all of my other extracurriculars too, versus like prom committee and swimming. They're all different people, and it gives you those really strong connections now, because if I ever need something from someone, like I have a bunch of friends from band who just happen to go into like math, comp sci, and I'm taking a comp sci course right now, so I still hit up my high school friends and ask them for help because I suck at Python. So it's just really nice to have those foundations of networks and networks from different groups of people. So if there's one thing you should do in high school is really build those relationships with all these different types of people. If you focus purely on making friends in science because that's who you think is more applicable to you in your future, it's actually not, because science and business always coincide. Same with science and engineering. So open up your network, meet new people, be really nice to everyone, and just those relationships are going to be really important in university and all the years forward as well.
That's great. And now on to Simmer.
Yeah, so as I said previously, I was in a bunch of clubs in high school, mostly because, again, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My parents were like, oh yeah, you don't really have a choice, you're going into med. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. But I wanted to figure out for myself. So I was like, okay, I did DECA and I didn't like business at all. I did it for fun, which I feel kind of bad about because maybe I took the position of someone who actually wanted to do business. But I did learn a bunch of good tips, like Shelly said, like presentation skills, which were really, really useful. I did enjoy HOSA. I liked that a lot. I didn't like doing medical terminology. Like I did that exam and I was like, hey, this is fun. This is cool. No. But then the next year I did like a public, it was like, I forgot what it was, but I think it's like a public health kind of thing. And they give you a topic and you talk about that. That I enjoyed a lot more. So even in that one club alone, I was able to find out that I didn't like one thing more so as the other. I was also in student council. That was kind of just for fun. It didn't really help me with anything, especially because all of the universities I applied to did not require a supplemental application. It was just purely on your mark. All of these experiences were more so just for me to learn where my interests lay. As well, in grade 10 and grade 11 summer, I volunteered at my local hospital, Mackenzie Health. And that was like a really, really good, I'm so happy I did that. Actually, when I applied, there was like a whole mix up because there was this girl who had the exact same name as me, like even my middle name. So I didn't even get an email back about whether or not I got in. So I just happened to email them and I was like, hi. I was so scared emailing them, but I was like, I'm not sure. I didn't get an email back. And they're like, oh no, we did send it. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, you're in. And I was like, what? So I'm really glad I took that step because I'm always like pretty shy. Like I would never do that usually, but just doing that little step helped me realize that first of all, I get bored really, really, really easily. So I was in different placements in the hospital and like the volunteer coordinator, Stephanie, she was basically like, Simmer, I know you're not gonna like this, but I'll still send you there just so you know how it is. And I went to like MRI and I hated it because all I did was sit there and I give them the form and I'm like, don't wear your earrings or anything. And then that's it. Then you just wait there. And I hated that because I wanted to do something. I hate just sitting there not being able to do anything. And it was the same in the gift shop. Like if there was no one there, then I'd literally clean every single inch of the gift shop and I'd rearrange all the clothing in like small, medium, large. Like I was insane. But like that's what I learned. Like I needed something that would keep me on my feet and not make me bored. And also a bunch of good connections. I got a bunch of good reference letters. I won an award later on because it's like if you reach the minimum number of hours, then you're applicable, and then you go through this whole process. But that was really great. So all in all, those experiences all helped me realize that I don't know if I want to be a doctor. Like Shelly said too, like I've been so many times just throughout this first year of undergrad, I was like, you know what, never mind, maybe I'll just drop out. So I was like, I'm so indecisive. And that's why I'm kind of glad for my program that I didn't have to decide right in my first year what stream I wanted to go into. Because I'm deciding, so I'm like, okay, do I want to go for doctor? Do I want to spend the rest of my life basically studying and then helping people? Or do I want to go into like TA? Or what do I want to do? Do I even want to go into medical? Do I want to go into teaching? So this process is not going to end the second you get into your university program. It's going to continue on until basically you develop where your true passion lies. So if, a lot of your friends already know, like they already seem like they know what they're doing. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, and then do this. And they seem like really put together. It's okay if you're not. Like you might feel inadequate. There's like imposter syndrome, especially in university, when you feel like there's so many people that are better than you that seem like they have their whole life put together. But just know that it's not the same. Like many other people have said already. University is all about you finding where your true passion lies, no matter how long that might take. It might take a bunch of years. It might just take a couple of months. It might be always changing, but that's just one thing you have to know, that whatever you do choose, you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life. And that's on you. Like nobody else is going to be playing the position of you for the rest of their life. Like your parents are not going to be you for the rest of your life. You're going to be you. Do you get what I mean? Like whatever decision you make is purely going to affect you yourself. So yeah, that's it. Just do what makes you happy.
That's great. And now on to Chloe.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with a lot of the panelists already, especially Edwin, like where you said, like, if you find something you like, definitely invest more time into it, and like really put forward that, because it can definitely show where your passion is in your application. So like there is a supplementary, and like they don't care if you have like hundreds and hundreds of clubs under your profile. Like think of it like they're looking at your profile for like 10 seconds. They want to get like a good glimpse of who you are. It's same thing with like us. Like if we go to someone's profile on Instagram, in the first 10 seconds you want to know who this person is, and then you're like, okay, see ya. But it's like similar to that. And that's like the same advice you should take if you're gonna go apply for jobs. Like they have 10 seconds to look at your resume. So it's like all that. I also live by the quote as well. Like everyone says, like expand your network. It's not like what you know anymore. It's like who you know. So like a lot of opportunities have come out of like me just talking to someone. So like in my like I guess like high school, like I was extremely shy in my school, but like in my community, I love just like getting involved. So like that weird like balance was there. So I never really went for like student council roles or all that, but I love just getting involved in the community. So I love like teaching, and I still love it today. Like, so back then it was more of like STEM, teaching high school concepts and all that. But then now it's like more of like, oh, I'm teaching development, or I'm teaching things around technology to university and high school students. So now it's like, it's a weird like transition now to my university career. So find things you love. Another thing I really wanted to explore was like cooking, and I don't know why. So I did like a co-op position in like high school where I was like an assistant chef. And my friend, like my whole family makes this joke, but it's like I still crack an egg and get shells, but like I can cook a creme brulee, so like hit me up. But like it's like one of those things, like just find little niches that you like, and then you'll like it'll follow you in that sense, and yeah, like expand your network. And then I guess like another thing I was extremely passionate about, like helping the Canadian Cancer Society, and because of that, it was mostly through like my family, just because like cancer affected my family, but I also was like extremely passionate around like finding cure around it. So for that, I worked with the Canadian Cancer Society to like organize a whole fundraiser. So I think that was something that also stood out just because it was like a new initiative in my school. So leading things that you're really passionate about is definitely really good advice. Like I didn't like wasn't like full force STEM if I was going to go into a STEM major. Like I found little niches here and there that I loved, and I definitely recommend that.
Cool. Now moving on to Jonathan.
I totally agree with what just Chloe just said. Like, I think what's best is that you do what you like. And university, like the goal is not to meet the supplemental application. The goal is not to tick all the boxes. The goal is to find what you like, figure out your own purpose, and do more of the things that you like, and everything else will come along. I think that motto has been really helpful for me personally, and it has made the experience like a lot less stressful and a lot more enjoyable. So I think like if that's something that you're thinking of, like definitely just I highly recommend that sort of mindset. And like I guess for specific things that helped me with like my application, I think it was a lot of my interest in hackathons. So like I heard about them in grade 9. So I just went in and it's like, what? People are coding like a facial recognition recorder. I don't know. There's like all these random like technologies they stick together, and it's like, what? That's crazy. I want to build that. So yeah, there was no thought about university. I didn't even know like what colleges or universities are out there. I was just like, let's do more of that. So just like going to a lot of these events has been really, really helpful for me. Like I was able to meet so many friends, learned a lot of technologies. Um, and I guess winning some of them are also helpful. For example, like I think winning Hack the North was helpful because that was kind of Waterloo's hackathon, and I was applying to Waterloo. So I think that was like something that would definitely help in an application to like stand out. We can talk about like something cool that you built. So I just go on a tangent here, like something really crazy that we built was like speech to text, but like over a person's head. So they say something and in AR you see like a little caption over the head. Just something that's like you find really fun to build. And naturally that will catch like the university's attention, I think. Some of the things that were helpful, I think, were being able to do like a co-op. So if your school offers a co-op course, I highly recommend you try that out. Usually they can pair you with a really good like a placement, or you can find your own, but it gives you a course credit and it's also like a really great experience overall. So I did a biomedical engineering co-op at U of T in grade 11, and I think that was also really helpful in like demonstrating like my interest in STEM. With respect to like anything that the application requires in terms of leadership aspects, like being like a president of Model UN or founding Computer Engineering Club was also really helpful. You can talk about like a lot of your experiences and what you've learned, and working with a variety of people. So it definitely, it is not for everyone, I believe. Like just do what you like. If you like leading a club, do that, but don't do it just for the sake of it, or else it becomes a lot more like tedious to do. And I think also an example of just like taking on some extracurriculars that are just interesting and not kind of what you're expected to in high school can be like, for example, doing open source coding. It's like you can help out a lot of organizations for free, and through that I got like I won like a Google Code in 2018 as a finalist, I believe, and I think that was like really helpful for like just showing that you care about like what you actually say you care about. So in the end, I do think that you really should just focus on what you like, and do more of that. I think in high school you have so much free time. It's like insane compared to university. So take advantage of that. Make sure you can just like sit down, and there's no such thing as wasted time if you're doing what you like, and you're learning. Like a good example is like someone that I met here. at the house I'm at is he in high school he launched a satellite. Like he was just like, oh, you see that like we're looking at satellites. Like, oh, you see that satellite? I think I launched that one. Like, that's awesome. Like, just do what you like, and I think that will help you stand out naturally.
Yeah, that's cool. And moving on to Alan.
Yeah, awesome. I guess before I get to my point of what I think made me stand out, I just wanted to give an example of how I think people should be thinking about, like, what you do in life. I think you can kind of think of each person as a snowball, and we all start off, with not many skills, not many connections. We're just, the people that we are on a day-to-day basis. And as we go through life, we're rolling down this hill. The path of least resistance is if you just go hands off and you just roll down the hill, and if there's any opportunities that happen to lie in your path, then you gain from those opportunities. But what I want to encourage you guys to do is, you are the snowball. You can control the direction that you roll. Rolling down the path of least resistance, just going straight down the hill, you're leaving things to luck. If you take the initiative and you just alter the direction you roll down a hill, slightly to the left, slightly to the right, and by what I mean by doing that is reaching out, getting active in anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a formal club, a hobby, or just anything at all. That adds to your toolbox. And when you go through life, you are building this toolbox. And for someone like me who's very indecisive on what I want to do, having a very large toolbox with a lot of tools makes you a very flexible person. You can choose what tools you want to add to your toolbox. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do in the future, but you can say like, hey, I think it'd be interesting if I knew how to cook, if I knew how to do accounting, if I know what it's like to work in a hospital, stuff like that. And along the way, you'll build your networks, you'll build your skills, and like everybody else has mentioned, you'll figure out eventually what you want to do. Or I think a better way to put it is what you don't want to do, because it's very hard to determine what you want to do. It's more of a process of elimination. And the sooner you get started in altering the direction you go, the things that you do will add up. You might think that in high school, once high school is over, all the clubs that you do just end at graduation. But that's not the case. As a first-year student, when you come into university, like everybody else, your resumes are probably blank. You don't have any work experience. So what sets you apart in university, I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of the question, is the things that you've done in high school. The connections that you've made. You'll realize that you may be you might be in the same program or the same residence or the same school as people that you met years earlier in a different club or different organization. So I think I just want to challenge you guys, take the first step. It adds up. One step today over the next 2 or 3 years as you're in high school can make a world's difference down the line. So I guess like with that, I do want to talk about what I think made me stand out. It's definitely non-conventional or unconventional, because I think I'm a person who likes to procrastinate on my schoolwork with other work to keep me busy. I've done DECA, I've done HOSA, I've done several youth councils, and that's helped me narrow down what I don't like to do. I think what helped me stand out the most was probably the cadet program. From a very young age, all I wanted to do was fly. Little guy, just like, you see Tom Cruise and Top Gun, you're like, damn, I want to do that. So in grade 7, I joined the Air Cadet program with the sole purpose of like, I want to fly. And over the summers, you have to put in the time in to get the rank, to get the experience, to get the credentials in order to apply for the scholarship to become a pilot. I think that process taught me a lot of leadership skills. And in the end, I was able to get these scholarships to become a pilot. And I think, although it doesn't really have anything to do with my major, it is pretty interesting to see someone who can say like, hey, like, I got my pilot's license, and then the week after course, I got my G1 or my G2. I learned to fly before I learned to drive. Like, those things are very unconventional. A lot of people would say that like, oh, the things I want to do are DECA, HOSA. These are like very appealing or attractive clubs for universities because they're very formal. But I think an argument can be made for things that set you apart unconventionally. It shows that you're taking the initiative to do the things that you want to do. And when you achieve something, I think that makes a world's difference. A lot of people can do these school clubs, but when you go above and beyond, those things speak out the most. Sorry if that was a little convoluted.
It's okay. That was awesome. So now moving on to our next question. What kinds of financial aid and opportunities are available at your university? Starting off with Edwin again.
Okay, yeah, I was assuming me. So I was very fortunate. So this doesn't apply to necessarily everyone, or can apply to necessarily to everyone. This also speaks from a place of privilege where I was able to get help from my parents for the first year for residence. But again, I was very fortunate to win a few scholarships, getting some TA positions throughout undergrad, and then again, TA positions and lecturing positions during my master's. So I was relatively quite independent with regards to finances. I know that's not something that everyone has the luxury of. And for that, I think what's really important is to really assess what you're capable of spending and what's not capable of spending. First, you can find scholarships that applies to you. Many big universities have more than enough scholarships for people who are actually applying. A lot of people, I think, find that, including myself, don't think they'll get a certain scholarship. And that kind of resonates with everybody. They don't think they can get the scholarship. So if you do apply and you put in the effort, and a lot of these scholarships not necessarily a long essays or that much work, it can really help a lot down the road. If you can find a part-time job and balance it, that's the key. Like if you're able to balance between work and school and social life is really important. I think that is a great aspect as well, especially if you can find a job on campus. With Zoom University going on and happening right now, there are a lot of different job opportunities that are also virtual. So you can definitely look into that. Yeah, finance is always a bit of a tricky issue. I have friends even in medical school that are struggling, and it's not something that's spoken well or openly enough. Definitely talk to your counselors if you have like guidance counselors in your high school, or if you go into university. They should have like a resource for student financial aid. You can always talk to them as well to get more information about, gaining more money, getting loans, whatever. OSAP is a really big one. If you are applying to Ontario, actually, if you're an Ontario student, you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm old and decrepit, but I think you can apply to OSAP regardless of what university you go to outside of Ontario. So when I was at McGill, I still was able to be qualified for OSAP. That's right? Okay, I think someone just said yes. Like, cool, awesome. They usually will be able to give you a bursary in addition to a loan. So that's the difference between a bursary, something you don't have to owe back, and a loan that you have to owe back. But with OSAP, you can owe them back after you finish university or schooling. If you decide to do graduate school or professional school, then you can extend that period so that loan doesn't have to be paid back immediately. The trick is always about interest. And I'm going way too much because I'm old and I need to worry about money. But just look for scholarships, apply to OSAPs. Feel free to ask me if you had any questions, because I've worked with some students before that had financial aid issues, and I also applied to some of these things.
Awesome. So now, Shelley?
So I as well was very fortunate to have my parents help me out with my finances, especially during first year, because living on residence and paying for a meal plan is extremely expensive. It's definitely not in everybody's budget, and it doesn't have to be. And I was able to secure a spot in residence, but again, even if you're not able to because of limitation of spots, which is I know that has been an issue at McMaster, or if it's a financial issue, I think it's really important to consider if you're able to commute to school. That will save you a lot of money on not paying for residence or a meal plan. But if you do want to live near campus and commuting is just not a viable option, I think it's really valuable to consider student housing, because typically student housing will be cheaper than residence, and it's also not mandatory to purchase a meal plan if you live off campus, whereas living on campus, you are required to purchase one. So cooking for yourself is actually a lot cheaper than paying out of pocket for campus food. Also, like personally for me at Mac, we don't have a lot of campus food options as much as other universities do. So I actually found that cooking at home was more rewarding, and like I get to eat what I want and not what's just available, I guess at 11 p.m. when everything else is closed. But I applied to university in my first year. I was eligible for OSAP, and I know that they had a lot of funding cuts for OSAP specifically. So the thing that really helped me out during second and third year was actually working a summer job. So both as the accounting clerk that I still work at during the summers, and my TA position has helped me pay my rent for the student house that I don't even live in right now because of COVID. But yeah, also consider the fact that when you do live in a student house, you're signing a lease for the full year. So a good way to finance that is if you're not living there during the summer, think about subletting. I know that's really far ahead into the future, but it's really important to consider when you are going to be going to school that you can't commute to directly, because these costs all add up over the course of university. As well as for any additional funding, you are eligible for bursaries through McMaster if you require financial assistance. And those are all internal applications that you do once you're already a student and once you're already enrolled. And I don't know much about that specifically, but I know there's a lot of details on the McMaster website.
Great. And now on to Lucy.
Well, I'm kind of sad to hear that there's no good food at Mac. But I guess for me, I'll talk a little bit more from the perspective of like someone who just went into university. So I guess talking a bit about scholarships. So this was a huge focus of mine throughout high school. I knew from the moment, like in grade 10, like that was a huge focus of mine. So I started like accumulating like a big list of scholarships I want to apply to. And in my grade 12 year, I applied to dozens of scholarships, like big and small. So that really helped. I think like I didn't end up winning. I ended up winning one big one from Queens, but I decided not to go to Queens ultimately. But even then, like the small ones that I won still really did add up. So I was able to pay probably my first like year and then maybe like half of my second year tuition with that. So that's still like a pretty decent amount, I'd say, especially given that I don't have to pay for res right now. But I'd say like just shoot your shot with the scholarships and like plan out your time accordingly. If you feel like scholarships are something you really want to pursue, it does take out like a chunk of your schedule. But the perk is kind of that once you start writing a couple of them, you can kind of reuse your application. So I did that a lot. So after writing like the first 5, I was like, I'm just gonna copy paste, switch up the wording a little bit. So it's definitely worth it. And I think applying also like teaches you a lot about yourself. But I actually don't know too much about what Mac offers specifically. I did apply for all like major university affiliated scholarships, and I don't believe Mac had like a big one. Like I know Western has like a big president's one, Queens has like Chancellor Scholarship and other major admission awards, but I don't actually think Mac has that. But they do have like entrance based awards depending on your overall average. So I guess that could help too.
Great. And now on to Eleanor.
So like a lot of the people in the panel, I was really lucky to be supported by my parents, but I was still really interested in scholarships because like for the people who applied to AEO for the IB business program at Western, you know, like the tuition come IB year, which is next year, is $30,000 a year. And that number terrified me because I was like, there's no way like my family could, you know, just drop 30K for my education. So of course, like summer jobs is so important for me. And if you don't have the time, do not worry at all, because there are definitely other ways. But not only does it give you good experience with, you know, potentially, you know, starting your career, giving you a good foundation for the skills, but it also gets you some of the money that you can start saving up. A big thing that Lucy mentioned was Western's President's Scholarship. So I personally did not know what that was, and I didn't get to apply for it, but I do have some friends that were able to win it, and it's basically covers like a huge chunk, if not all, of your scholarship depending on your program. And another really cool thing that Western does, but I think they ended, was something called the continuing scholarship. So that's something that I was able to get in my high school year. It's basically if you reach a 90 average, you get a bit of money every year. So it cycles on and on. So a part of your tuition each year is paid for, which has been really helpful and a little bit more like stress relieving. Another thing that I will suggest is look into smaller scholarships. So the big ones are obviously like Loran Scholarship, TD Scholarship, huge ones that so many people apply for, and unfortunately only a few people get to win that big sum of money. So something that I did was I applied to a lot of the small ones, maybe like $500, like $1,000. But if you win a bunch of those small ones that less people know about or like are competing for, they end up accumulating to like a good sum of money that can pay for at least your residence or your tuition for first year. And I do know like a lot of people think, you know, upper years don't get scholarships, but you can, your university definitely has a website for it. You should look into it pretty early on in the year, just because a lot of them are due around January, February time. So start early. I know Lucy said she's starting grade 10. That's really early and that's great, but you can probably look at, if you're in grade 12, maybe start in September, November, because a lot of them are due pretty quick, and writing all those essays does take a lot of time. So don't put it to the last minute, and just, you know, you'll be okay. You'll find ways to support your education.
Awesome. And now Simmer?
Yeah, like pretty much everyone else on the panel, I'm also really grateful that my parents are helping me pay for my tuition. With that being said, I do still work summer jobs, not really related to the field at all. I worked at Wonderland in my grade 12 summer, and I was supposed to work this year too, but because of COVID, I didn't get to, so that was kind of good. I was just collecting the checks from home. But that really did help pay off a lot of my tuition, because like that, I think the one good thing about working there was the hours are so fat and long that you basically you work for a lot of time, so you do make a lot of money. So that really helped me in paying off my tuition, and also not living on campus or downtown also really helped. A lot of people know rent downtown is literally insane. My friend had a bachelor apartment, so it's not even an actual room, and she was paying $2,000 a month. Oh, did it? Oh my God, yeah. It's a good summer job, especially when you're like transitioning from high school to university. A lot of people I actually met there went to U of T. So, oh my God, yeah, I was supposed to be in Kidsville this year. I was supposed to be a Ghost Coaster. I was at Thunder Run last year. Oh my God.
Sorry, that was me. That was my first job, was Ghoster Coaster.
Really? Oh my God. I was like so excited. I got to ride at least one roller coaster this year before COVID, because we went for our training, which was no point. But yeah, anyway, what was I talking about? Okay, wait, I forgot. Let me come back. I think I was talking about, yeah, anyway, so I met a lot of people there who also went to U of T, and I'm still friends with now, and they're all upper years, and they helped me a lot. So that was really good. Again, OSAP is really good. Make sure you apply for that. I know U of T, I'm on the website right now because I'm not too familiar with it, but they have this thing called UTAP, which is University of Toronto Financial Aid. So you can apply for that. There are resources to help you transition. Of course, there's also scholarships, just like I think someone said, there's always apply for the smaller scholarships, because you do have a lot of a greater chance of winning one of those. I did a bunch of those too, got a bunch of money, and it all accumulates. So every dollar basically counts. Like anything you save, like I always try saving money, and then I go to campus, and the second I see it's important, I go and buy a coffee. But still, in the long run, it did help. You know, budgeting, everything. Budgeting is also really important. Setting aside, you know, a max amount of money you can spend per week. Especially, I feel like in university, when you're on your own, you don't have your parents on your back anymore. There's like this whole new world of spending your money whatever way you want. So there's a lot of basically self-control that you have to learn that will really also help you just budget your time in university.
Awesome. And now on to Chloe.
Yeah, I'll actually bring in the perspective of UTAPs, because actually that's something helping me. But I also applied for OSAP. I think like financially, like that was the biggest worry I had when coming in, just because like I'm living with like a one parent household, and I have like a multiple siblings as well. So like that whole like I don't want to go to a big university that has like like really expensive tuition and like not be able to pay for it. So that was definitely a worry. But I was able to get OSAP. Scholarship wise, I wasn't really lucky. I think my other admission or like my other offers did offer me a lot better scholarships or like money for my first year. But then I also had to put in the fact that I had to live on res. So that was like also like, oh, at the end of the day, like I might as well just live in Toronto because I live here and just stay. So U of T gave me the worst in like entrance scholarship, but I still came. Um, I knew there was something called UTAS when I came in, but basically it's if you like are able to get stuff from OSAP, um, if you go into like a STEM major, the OSAP won't pay for everything in your STEM major because STEM is overall just like really expensive. So like my tuition is like around 17K, but that's like domestic. Like I know people who are paying like 60K a year. So it's literally like it's expensive. But like OSAP only covered so much of that. And then UTAPS covered like the rest. So like UTAPS is like you don't have to pay back. Basically, it's like U of T gets like a lot of like donations and stuff and like things to provide for their students. And since like engineering is like such a high or known program at U of T, they really like to invest into their students. So I was able to get UTAPS to also pay for the rest of my tuition. And I didn't really have to work jobs to pay for my tuition. So now everything I earn, like right now I'm doing a work study. And then in the summer I did a job as well because it was just out of like passion. I use that to like invest. So then now I just put it in the bank, invest it. So then maybe after I can like go travel or something or like maybe work abroad one day. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, it's like UTAP definitely did help. They don't really state much because they don't know for sure if you're going to get it. But if you are applicable for OSAP, I think you're automatically applied with UTAPs. But definitely feel free to talk to me more about your like situation, and I can definitely let you know if that's still something that's available to you. Just because it was more something in my situation versus anyone else I knew.
That's great. And now on to Jonathan.
Okay, yeah. So I'm also really grateful for my parents to have been able to fund the majority of my undergraduate tuition. But I am aware of like a few bursaries that Waterloo offers if you are facing financial trouble or difficulties. So you could look into like your university's local bursary application in addition to what like we can have on OSAP. So that could little things can add up there. Um, for Waterloo, there was also an admission entrance scholarship. So I think for most universities, they also have something like that. Um, so basically, they have, for example, the President Scholarship. So if you have like a May admission average of at least 90%, you can get a $2,000 entrance scholarship. So just some little things that could add up. So just definitely like a lot of people um, may be thinking of like, senioritis, slacking off. But if you do need like that type of entrance scholarship, that could definitely help as well. Um, and one thing that I did because of COVID was that I subletted my apartment because there was all school was online. So if like the turn that comes up is also remote, I think you could definitely save up on like tuition with regards to living expenses, so rent and food. If you're able to like live at home with parents, that's a huge saver of cost as well. And I think it doesn't really detract from the online experience anyways. So just little things here and there. And I'm not sure if it's still happening, but the CESB offered by government of Canada for coronavirus relief could also be helpful. Um, if you meet the application requirements, definitely feel free to check it out. I think it was like $2,000 or $1,000 a month. Um, just these little things could probably help out a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And now, Alan.
Yeah, just adding on to Jonathan, the entrance scholarships, they're not too much, but every little bit helps. I do think the U Waterloo entrance scholarships are based off of your admission average, so that's usually your midterm marks. So there is a little bit of wiggle room there if you're somebody who gets hit with senioritis like I did. For me, my parents are divorced. However, both parents, I'm lucky enough to have both of them contributing to my tuition. I also qualified for a little bit of OSAP. I think one thing that has been mentioned is there are a lot of really small scholarships out there that really add up as well. And you might be wondering, like, how can I find these small scholarships? Well, just a few examples. I did get a scholarship from the city of Richmond Hill. So your municipality, your province, I don't know about the province one, but definitely your municipalities usually have some sort of student scholarships. Also, if you're fortunate enough to have parents working at big companies or companies who do sponsor scholarships, a lot of companies also have scholarships for grade 12 students. I know there was a scholarship from TELUS, and I think there was also one from CIBC. I'm not too sure. So ask your parents to ask around, check their internal I guess, communications to see if there are scholarships available for family members of employees. Also reach out to, you can also start thinking about, the demographics that you're a part of. There are a lot of scholarships dedicated for minorities or certain people who belong to different groups. Search around for those. You can also find scholarship databases. Just Google Ontario or Canadian student scholarships for university. There are a lot of databases out there that you can find.
Awesome. So that was our final general question. To the panelists, thank you so much for your time and your wise words today. And now back to Samantha about our giveaway and breakout rooms.
Yeah, so right before we get to breakout rooms, there's still 15 minutes left in the Canadian panel. Our giveaway winners, first of all, for our Smash Kitchen gift card is Brittany Kwan. Brittany, are you in the meeting right now? You can just put in the chat. And secondly, for our Canago Pizza certificate, we have Ramisha Alam. So if you could also just put it into the chat if you're here. So it doesn't seem like we're getting any responses, but yeah. If they, okay. So we'll message the giveaway winners individually, and if they do not respond within 24 hours, then we'll reach out to the next giveaway winners. So yeah, there's about 14 minutes left in the panel. So right now, if you could just go into the link that was sent out for the breakout rooms, then you can just scroll through and look at which program you'd like to go into. And if you would like to stay in the one with Jonathan for software engineering, you can just stay in this call. So yeah, everyone disperse. Yep, for easy access, the link is also in the chat right now. Yeah, so if anyone has questions for Jonathan, that would be great. Personally, I also have a couple questions. So I know you chose like software engineering. Personally, I know you also started the computer engineering club, so I was just wondering like why you chose like software engineering rather than some of the other similar programs like computer science or computer engineering and all of those.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a little bit of a background. I got into tech because I was interested in hardware first. So like as a kid, I would like take apart equipment and like order random electronic components from like AliExpress and then build like, these little hardware projects. And then from there I got into like the world of microcontrollers like Arduinos and then moved into Raspberry Pis, and I was like, wait, you can do so many more cool things with like software. So that's like kind of where I started like going to hackathons. Um, so my idea on the intersection of software and hardware is that with regards to technology, a lot of the things in life we cannot do without hardware. The applications are endless, but to really transform the like the power and what the like the potential to leverage the potential of hardware, you need software. You need like the brains and you need the AI and you need the ML. So that's kind of my idea on that. So in my high school, we had a computer science club, which was teaching students only software parts. So there was no discussion about the underlying technologies, the abstractions that the software makes. And there's not a lot of interactive activities with regards to like working with the actual hardware. So I was like, I felt that was lacking. So that's why I started the computer engineering club. So some activities we did were like we taught people how to build circuit boards, do some soldering, code, and like light up an LED. And there was like in connection to the internet. We had things like you could like take this temperature sensor and then like display it live on a website. Just these little things that I think that computer science club was missing. I wanted to like really share with other people through computer engineering club. So at the end of the day, I decided on software engineering compared to the other programs, mainly because of like the cohort system at Waterloo. Software engineering is one of the smaller engineering cohorts at Waterloo. I think this year our cohort was like 130 people. So the combination of being in a tighter knit community while also aligning with my goals of like focusing more on software and like the higher level like applications of that worked really well for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Personally, for me, I think I also took quite an interest in hardware when I was younger, but then because everyone's just telling you to go into software because there's more job prospects perhaps, and because it's expanding a lot quicker, I started getting more into actually programming, and so I never really got that deep into actually learning more about hardware, learning past like the basics of Arduino. So how would you recommend I go about like learning more about hardware?
Hmm. Uh, okay, here's a few good resources I have. Um, Number one, check out hackster.io. Let me put that in the chat. It's If you're interested in hardware, I highly recommend it. It's like a website that has a collection of people's personal projects and they document how they built it. There's also a lot of online hardware contests that are there. Oh, sorry, I posted privately. This Zoom. Let me try again. There we go. All right, there it is. So highly recommend it. Uh, there's It's really interesting. They have this cool model where you pitch your idea. If it gets accepted, they send you the hardware for free. You can work on it, and then you send your submission, and you have to send a submission. Like that's how the system works. And if you win, there's like some really juicy prizes. So I got to learn a lot about hardware through that. Um, if you're interested, feel free to shoot me like an email. Um, I guess I'll put it here. And I can send you like the lecture or like the meeting notes that we had for computer engineering club. We kind of cover all the basics there. And if you ever want hardware, okay, my personal preference is don't go on Amazon. It's too expensive. Go on AliExpress. It's like 5 times cheaper. You do have to wait like, I don't know, from 2 weeks to 2 months, but If it's just for hobby's sake, I highly recommend it. So yeah, Arduino is the board you should start with if you want to get started with hardware. Really easy to get started. There's a lot of software support. The Arduino IDE is super easy to use. And if you want to move more into the Internet of Things space, there's a really cheap, like $4 board called the ESP 8266. And that is like, you can buy that on AliExpress. Highly recommend that one. It's like my favorite board of all time. It's just like a little chip that has internet access and you can do everything with it. So yeah, I think there's also tons of like tutorials online for whatever you want to build. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, because like I know you're talking like about how like you shouldn't buy things on Amazon. Like for me, when I was first purchasing like some of the hardware that I had, I really just only had like the basics like breadboards and like a couple wires and then a few motors. I got it from an actual brick and mortar store called Sale Electronics, and it was definitely quite expensive.
Yeah. I don't really recommend, but if you don't really care about the price and just want it here fast, Amazon Prime, that's the way to go. Yeah. Awesome. Did you guys have any questions? Yeah.
Yep. I see there are 35 of you in here. Do you guys have any questions for Jonathan?
How realistic is it to get into software engineering compared to other engineerings? Okay, don't let the admission average scare you. That scared me, and I think I was too, like, my mental picture of how hard it was to get in was completely unrealistic. So a little bit of context. So for our cohort this year, the admission average was 96.3%. But the reason that it's that high is because of a combination of things, like for example, grade inflation. So Waterloo released like information about how they rank in like high schools. They give like a weighting for each high school based on the performance of the students that come to Waterloo from that high school versus their admission average when they first came. So search your high school up on that list. For example, like Richmond Hill High Schools is pretty like the adjustment factor was pretty low, so that was good. That meant that like a lower mark at like Richmond Hill would like be comparable to like a higher mark at like a high school with a really high adjustment factor. And also, as long as you have like really good extracurriculars, you should be fine. I think someone got admitted with like an 82 and 83%. The AIF is very important. Just make sure you stand out there. So I don't really think it's too competitive. Definitely less competitive than like the American Ivy League schools, because they have like a quota on international students as well. So if you're from Canada, it should be pretty good to get in. Any other questions? Just feel free to message in the chat. Would you say it's necessary for a vast majority of my extracurriculars to be STEM-based? No, I don't think you need a vast majority of your extracurriculars to be STEM-based. I'm not the admission committee, but I do think that Waterloo looks for like well-rounded people. So it's good to have extracurriculars in STEM, and it's not bad to have extracurriculars in STEM. It's just that I think when you have a more diverse set of experiences, that definitely helps. Yeah, overall, I think there's no really big need to focus on kind of optimizing for the admission that way. As long as you do something that's interesting and unique, it should stand out. Yeah. it should be fine. All right, one more. If you don't have that many great ECs and are just getting into coding, do you still have a chance of getting an admission? Oh yes, for sure. A humongous chance. Don't worry. Like I'm trying to think of a percentage for our cohort, but I know that like at least a quarter of the people that came in, I think, didn't have much prior coding experience. Like our courses in CS, like their introduction courses that they teach you in first year, assume that you don't really know coding at all. So it should be fine. Admission committee considers that as long as you demonstrate an interest and passion in this field and like you show that you really want to get in, I think that would be good. If you don't have that many, okay, yeah. Does that answer your question? Awesome.
All right, so it's 6 p.m. now, so the American Universities panel is about to start. We're just going to wait for the people to come back into this meeting. But otherwise, like if you still have questions, just like quickly shoot them in the chat. Jonathan's still here, and he also put his email down. So if you have any questions for him, you can also email him after the panel.
Oh, what type of projects have you built in your own free time? Oh, yeah, I had a lot of free time in high school. Yeah, I'm just gonna answer them as they come until people like finally come in. But yeah, I think one of my favorite projects was yeah, a soft robotics prosthetic hand. So what soft robotics is like you have a pneumatic system, which is pressure, like we had air, and it would just simply take the readings of your wrist, like the nerve signals, and use that to control like a hand. So like I 3D printed like some casts and made it in silicone. And that's what I submitted for science fair. It was a really fun experience because like it was a combination of software, hardware, and biomedical engineering. Um, yeah, other than that, outside of that, I did a lot of hackathons. So maybe if you find me on DevPost, you can see a few of the things I've built there. And also Hackster, I had like a few projects there as well. Trying to think. There were a few that were interesting. One was like a box that was like a battery, but it would output like 120 volts AC. So you can plug in like your computer or whatever, but it can't draw too much power, but it was like just a portable wall outlet, which is like really fun. Um, yeah, I didn't really mention those projects at all in my application. It was just stuff I did for fun. I think that helps just getting more proficient in like what you're interested in. So if you guys are interested in like one specific field like machine learning or natural language processing or anything outside of tech, high school is the best time to do it. You will have like no time once university hits. What are some beginner level projects for Python coders? Ooh, trying to think. I think if you go on codeacademy.org, they have some interactive lessons for Intro to Python. You can find some helpful articles on like how to build a game. I think the games are really fun. Intro to coding. You can maybe make a game of Snake in Python, which would be pretty fun. Um, Python is really powerful. It's used a lot in machine learning. So if you're interested in that, like look into something like OpenCV or Introduction to TensorFlow. Yeah, Python's a really fun beginner language. Highly recommend. What's my best language? Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm not good at any language. I think English is my favorite. No, like for programming language, I think probably Java or Python. I'm moving more into Python now. It's just better for programming questions for interviews, I believe. but we learned Java in our high school pre-AP and AP classes. It really helps you understand like object-oriented programming. Oh, am I cutting into the American panel?
We're still waiting for people to roll in because it seems like with the breakout rooms, people just have a bunch of questions. So yeah.
I guess I'll talk a little bit more about the software engineering program. An interesting, unique thing to Waterloo software engineering is like in your 4th year, there's something called a capstone project. So you can work on that with like a group of 4. And a lot of the students there treat the capstone project as an opportunity to start a company or work on like a product. So it's like the duration is an entire year, I believe, and you present it at the end. So it's like a really great opportunity to build some like really cool products and applications. So that was also another reason I chose software engineering at Waterloo. We should have some like background music, you know, like a lobby.
Right, so it's 6:06, so we are running a little bit behind schedule. So we're just going to get started with the American Universities panel. Yeah. So to anyone who might not have been in the Canadian Universities panel, a quick introduction to Superposition Toronto. We are a student-led nonprofit dedicated to bridging the gender gap in STEM by creating educational opportunities and supportive communities. And since being founded in July, we've reached 14 different countries across the world, and we hope to continue bringing our empowering experience to as many people as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Avinash, who's going to be our MC for the American panel.
All right, guys. First of all, we have to thank all of our Canadian panelists for sticking around throughout the breakout rooms, for answering our questions and providing such wisdom throughout their time in university. However, now it is time for our American panelist section. I hope you guys are excited. We're going to lead it off with Eric Shen from Harvard, and we're going to have him introduce himself first.
Hi, hi guys. I am Eric Shen. I am a Canadian student currently studying in my first year at Harvard College. Unfortunately, as you might be able to tell from my background, things are entirely online, at least for me. So I'm at home in Richmond Hill, Ontario. So just a little bit about me. Contrary to some of the programs in the Canadian panel that you guys might have learned about, took a little bit of a different approach throughout high school. Sort of like a jack of all trades, I suppose. I've been involved in some math and science competitions. Namely, I represented Canada at the 51st International Chemistry Olympiad in Paris, France. Really good experience. I'm wearing a shirt right now about it. And yeah, so you can feel free to ask me about those experiences or about applying to college. So given that I'm a first year, I probably have the least experience in college in the programs themselves, but you can always feel free to ask me about anything related to applications, things about Harvard specifically, I suppose, or any certain questions about choosing which sorts of things to do during high school. I'd be happy to answer that.
All right, thank you, Eric. Isha?
Hi, everyone. My name is Isha. I'm a third year at UC Berkeley. I'm studying biomedical engineering with minors in design innovation and public policy. And I'm so excited to be speaking with you all today. It's been a while since I was in high school, so I definitely have a lot of cool experiences that I've been a part of at Berkeley. I am currently an undergraduate student researcher at the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine, and fingers crossed will be published by the end of the year, so that's really exciting. In addition to that, I'm part of some awesome design, entrepreneurship, and health and tech fellowships at Berkeley. And in high school, I mostly was part of, kind of similar to Eric, a lot of like science fairs, SHAD programs like that to get my exposure in engineering and entrepreneurship. I also did a lot of charity work in a lot of different fields in student advocacy. And I also was part of like Model UN pretty actively. So I'm very happy to speak with you all today. Please ask any questions about Berkeley, applying as an international student, engineering, all of that. And yeah.
Wow, diverse already. Amazing. All right, now we have Dongjun. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right.
Oh, no, you're good. So yeah, hi everyone. I am a senior at MIT studying Aeroastro and EECS. I guess during my time here, I've done like a good amount of research in different labs. I've worked at companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin in the aerospace industry. And then in high school, I guess I've created like a program basically to teach students like web development to elementary and middle school kids. And I think that was a pretty big thing that was involved in my admission to MIT. So happy to talk about my experiences in college and high school, and yeah.
Amazing. I know MIT has always been a school of interest for me. Wendy? Oh, sorry, Matthew is next here.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Matt or Matthew, or some people call me Katz. Just call me whatever you want. I'm a CS, I guess technically sophomore at Stanford, but I'm on a gap year right now just due to like everything that's happening, like COVID. Originally from Vancouver, BC. So I get the, I understand like applying as an international student, that sort of stuff. In high school, I was mostly doing like STEM, mostly like software stuff. So a lot of hackathons. I don't know if any of you here know about something called Google Codin. It was like an open source competition that now they've shut down, actually, which is sad. Did the CCC. Some of you probably know CCC. I wasn't very good at that. It's fairly mediocre. Yeah, in college, the main thing I do is I run the hackathon at Stanford. I helped direct it this year, Tree Hacks, and like a few other things. Right now, I'm on a gap year to work at various software companies. So right now I'm working at a game company here in Vancouver. In the summer, I worked at Apple, and then I'm working at startups in the new year, bouncing around between 3 of them. Excited to be here. Happy to answer any questions about like applying to US schools as a Canadian, getting jobs in tech, I don't know, etc., working on personal projects, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Matt. Wendy, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I am Wendy, and I am a recent graduate from Johns Hopkins University. I actually just graduated in May, and I studied chemistry and public health. And right now, I am taking my gap year while applying to medical school. So I'm a research assistant for this kidney transplant lab that I'm working at, and I'm still in Baltimore. I am originally from Vancouver, BC, and it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but during high school, I've done a lot of volunteering. I worked with children with disabilities. I've worked with this Burnaby Village Museum and neighborhood houses, and was also part of Model UN and did a lot of music as well. So I played the flute and I dance. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I am excited to answer any questions about, applications, the college life, and also even for people who are interested in applying to medical school, I can answer those questions as well.
All right, thank you, Wendy. It is amazing to see how much diversity we have here. From computer science to bioengineering, we have almost all of the elements of the spectrum covered, and I'm sure you guys are going to entertain us quite fully here. All right, so we're going to start off the panel with a bunch of questions that we've collected for you, similar to the Canadian portion. And that primary first one is, why did you choose your university and major of interest? Eric, we're going to start off with you again.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose I forgot to talk about this when I was introducing myself, but currently what I'm thinking of doing is applied mathematics. It's a fairly specific major to Harvard College in general, but it's kind of a blend of statistics, computer science, and some pure math courses. So I guess I'll be honest with you. When I was applying, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I put down physical sciences on the Common App because, you know, chemistry and stuff. But I suppose it just goes to show like the lenience and the kind of flexibility that the college takes towards the students in declaring a major, or concentration as it's called on campus. And I suppose like during the application process, I still remember this vividly because this was just a few months ago. I really didn't have any expectations going anywhere. And so this is sort of like a shot in the dark. But ultimately, once I got my acceptances and offers and whatnot, I think I chose Harvard just because of its relative proximity to home compared with other US universities. And also because of the flexibility in the concentrations and majors, as I talked about. So essentially, like, as I mentioned, I do not even have to choose a plan of study right now. I only need to declare my second, next fall during my second year. And so I think that's a big benefit. It gives you a lot of time to explore. Actually, like, the way the first year experience is structured is that like they purposely make it kind of easy on us, I guess, for at least for the first semester, in that we're supposed to take like introductory courses and whatnot. And I think that's just a pretty great introduction to the college, even though it's in an online format. And I guess like that's kind of like why I was interested in choosing this concentration, given that, you know, I kind of wanted to make a pivot to more math related science subjects from the science stuff that I did in high school, as I thought it would be better from a theoretical perspective. Just given the sheer flexibility in choosing what you want to do, I thought Harvard was a pretty good choice.
All right, how interesting. Isha, you're next.
Awesome. So I'll start off kind of with why I chose biomedical engineering. To be completely honest with you, I liked all three sciences and I could never pick between one of them. And I felt like biomedical engineering is a really cool way to combine them, specifically for the attendees who are within Canada. I attended one of the LEAP programs at McMaster in bioengineering, and from that I really was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and something that really interests me. And then going on to why I chose UC Berkeley. So first off, the field of biomedical engineering is very, very new in Canada. Like Waterloo's program is maybe 5-6 years old. It's not, it's a very new field in Canada. And so the US schools had a lot more established research, innovation, and companies that I could work at for biomedical engineering. So that's what led me to kind of apply to the US. And then specifically with Berkeley, I would highly recommend, I know it's hard right now, especially if any of you are seniors, to visit the school. But once I was accepted, I visited the schools that I was accepted into, went to California for the first time, and I was able to actually see if I can see myself on the campus. And I think that's a lot bigger of a part than we think it is until we get on campus. And right now, virtually, try to attend some info sessions by the university, get an idea of what the university is like. And so when I visited Berkeley, Berkeley's bioengineering program has a lot of flexibility for me to study what I want to study. Whereas typically biomedical engineering programs are very, very structured, and you almost have no freedom in what kind of classes you're taking. So that was definitely a selling point. And also just the amount of research and innovation there is in the Bay Area. I'm sure Matt can agree as to the amount of opportunities you get. So this summer, I will most likely be working at Medtronic, which is a pretty awesome biomedical devices company, and it's all because of a Berkeley alumni who I met. So those connections and opportunities you get at Berkeley is what what really attracted me to the school.
Amazing. All right. Dongjun, why did you choose your university and major of interest?
Yeah, I chose aerospace because I don't know, I just thought it was cool a while back. And at some point in high school, I was like, yeah, I'll probably study aerospace. So then I looked around like what programs and what schools have good aerospace programs, and turns out there's not a lot of universities that have a big focus on it. In a lot of schools, it'll be combined with mechanical engineering. So I looked out for the schools that had a strong aerospace, and I applied early to MIT, got in, and was like, yeah, I'll go there. And I've enjoyed my time here, so I'm glad I made that decision. And along the way, I realized a lot of engineering disciplines require some amount of coding skills. I guess that's just how the world works now. And so I've been taking a few like CS classes every semester. And it turns out I had enough credits to finish the double major within 4 years. So that's why I'm a double major with Aero, Astro, and EECS.
Got you. That sounds very interesting. Matthew, what about you?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with major because major sort of begets the school choice. Yeah, I think CS was sort of what I want to do from fairly early age. I was programming since like early high school, so that's like middle school aged, I guess. I'm not sure the exact year. Yeah, I did fairly well in like most courses in high school, but I find like CS is one of the few courses that I like retain knowledge in. Like most things in one year out the other. So I guess like for my own good, decided to go with CS. Yeah, I guess that's a decent enough like heuristic on if you're trying to decide between courses. Also, like CS, I think is a really creative like discipline. I often actually I'm really into political science too. So I often compare like what's happening in the Bay Area now with like the like American Revolution, sort of, you know, the New England or like Philadelphia area around that time of like you've got a bunch of like really really smart people who are intent on building something. So that's sort of why I'm doing CS. Why Stanford? Well, first one, you know, good program for CS. Good clubs, lots of clubs. You know, with good industry connections, as Isha said. The Bay Area location definitely like it really helps. I don't think I wouldn't have gotten any of the jobs that I have had or will have in the future so far without like being in the not saying that, you know, you can't get jobs in other places, but for me personally, I found it a huge help. Also, I think curriculum is a really underrated part of a school choice. I think there's like sort of this notion that curriculum is the same at all schools, especially for like engineering disciplines, which may be true, but the amount of like freedom of choice, flexibility in what you study, you know, like at Stanford, prerequisites are like merely suggestions. They're not like enforced. Those sorts of policy differences do change between schools. So I think that's sort of worth looking at too.
Well, those are definitely important factors. Now, I didn't know that. That's definitely interesting. Wendy, what about you?
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna just go through why I chose Hopkins first. So when the summer of my 11th grade, I went to this summer camp hosted by Hopkins. It's called Center for Talented Youth. And I attended this leadership conference, and it was just really interesting. And I met people from, you know, all of the world. And then from then on, I kind of learned more about Hopkins. And then thinking about what I wanted to do in the future, I found that research was something I really wanted to continue with. And since Hopkins is such a research big and research heavy school, I decided to pick Johns Hopkins. And, you know, it was a really bold choice as well because I applied there for early decision. So if I got in, then I would attend. And I eventually got in. And how I chose my major. So I initially chose chemistry, which I stuck out with the 4 years of my undergrad. I chose chemistry because in high school, I really enjoyed chemistry in the classroom. I took AP Chem, and it was just something that was really fun for me. And at the time, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to go into healthcare, but I definitely wanted to do science and more like applied sciences in that field. So that's why I chose chemistry. And then coming to Hopkins, I eventually added a second major, public health, because first of all, Hopkins is #1 in public health in the US. So initially that's what drew me to public health, but also because, I've grown up in 3 different countries. I grew up in Taiwan, Vancouver, and the US eventually. So I really wanted to learn more about community health and being able to reach out to communities to provide them education and stuff like that. So that's why I picked up the second major. And overall, I just really enjoyed my time at Hopkins because I had the opportunity to explore a lot of different types of research. I was able to do public health research, cardiology research, and also do a lot of chemistry labs in the curriculum. So I would say that Hopkins was such a great choice in my life, and I'm really glad that I made the choice to go to this school and do my 2 majors as well.
Oh, that is amazing. It's really nice to hear that all of you guys enjoy your choices, both for your major and your school. All right, well, our next question is, are there any extracurricular activities like summer programs, internships, or volunteering opportunities that you participated in high school that helped you stand out on your college application process? Eric, you are our first for this question.
Yeah, I can very much relate to the kind of frustration that can be associated with trying to find things to do for this summer, especially given like what's going on right now. And it is very much a sentiment that continues into university, at least from my experience. But I guess I guess I can share what I did at least for 2 summers. So the first summer was going to SHAD, just like Isha said. I applied to the program in grade 10 and I got in, so I spent my month of July doing that. And yeah, I think that was a pretty enjoyable experience. I wouldn't give it like tremendous credit, but it was definitely a worthwhile experience. So I understand it's online right now, so you might want to reconsider doing that sort of stuff, but definitely look into those sorts of academic programs. As other people have mentioned, there are a ton of different things that you can do that I just didn't hear of back in grade 10 or 11, such as programs that American universities like run. And of course, I'm not sure how that's going to pan out for this summer, but just keep a lot of tabs open and make sure you're always searching for other stuff to do. So after grade 11, I took part in 2 big things. July was essentially preparing for the chemistry Olympiad, as I had been selected for the national team. And essentially what happened was for like 2 or 3 weeks, I just like commute down to U of T every day and then just spend 5 hours in the lab doing experiments and then just go home and then study organic chemistry. So that wasn't very fun, but going to Paris was certainly fun. So I guess it balances out. And of course, like this is a sufficiently rare experience. Of course, Olympiads and academic competitions are selective as they are. So like, don't be hard on yourself if you don't get those sorts of experiences. So after the competition, I still had like a few weeks of summer. I returned to U of T and I did some assistant research at lab. So this wasn't anything like a science fair kind of level because that wasn't really something I was good at. I just did like some volunteering at a local lab at U of T, doing some lab experience with fluid mechanics, kind of being like a lab rat. But I think that was still a worthwhile thing to do. Got me kind of interested in the sorts of research that comes with chemical engineering, chemistry, and physics. And definitely, I thought it was a fairly worthwhile thing to do. Like keep in mind, like depending on where you're from, getting that sort of experience is also fairly difficult. If you come from something like a private school, it might be easier to leverage some connections. But from a public school, of course, like you cannot have any expectations going into the process, right? Essentially, like the way I did it was just like cold emailing a bunch of people over the spring semester, and eventually I got back from one. And so yeah, those were some things I did during the summer. I wouldn't say internships are the most in reach. They are few and far between for high school students. So looking into these different like academic endeavors is something that worked out for me. Of course, it's really up to you.
Great advice, Eric. Definitely we should take it to heart. Isha, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually a campus ambassador for UC Berkeley, so I give tours, and this is a very common question that I get. And I would say, for me, I quickly recognized that as a high school student, there's not a lot that I can do in the field of biomedical engineering. It requires a lot of expertise and knowledge, which I didn't have as a 16-year-old. And so I quickly recognized that there's two main things and two key pieces of advice that I kind of would give to anyone applying to US schools. One is be genuine in any activity that you do. It is really obvious when you're doing something just for an application versus when you're doing something because you genuinely like it. And so even though I was interested in engineering, I still did a lot of work in student advocacy, and I founded my own charity, which I worked on for like 2-3 years, and now it still has kind of people who are running it, who are in high school. And so do things that you're genuinely interested in, and not everything you has to be about your major one. And the second thing is longevity. If you like something, keep doing it and keep showing growth in that activity. So for instance, I tried out Model UN in 9th grade. I really liked it. And so I kept doing it for all my years of high school, where in the last year I was on like the secretariat for SOMA, which I went to UTS. So I was on the secretariat for SOMA, which is a pretty big Model UN conference. So that kind of showed growth and passion and longevity for what I was doing. So two things: stay genuine in the activities you're doing, and secondly, maintain longevity and show that in your application that you've been consistent with something and you've consistently put in time and effort. And then in terms of like science stuff, if you're specifically interested in engineering, I also did SHAD. I went to some other like summer programs that were research-based for engineering. I volunteered at the Oakville Hospital for like 2 years, I think. And I also competed at like the Canada-wide science fair. So that's some of the things that I did specifically for science.
Wow, Isha, definitely great advice. All right, Dongjun, what about you?
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna agree with Isha on that. There's not really like a single formula to getting into college. You should definitely try to find something you're interested in, and definitely don't force yourself into doing something that you don't enjoy just for the sake of college apps. Because I mean, in the end, that's just a waste of time. But yeah, in high school, a couple things that I did. In I think about 9th grade, one of my friends asked me if I wanted to teach web development at like local community places. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds like something interesting. So we actually created a program to teach elementary and middle schoolers like how to code in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Had a couple courses that we ran at libraries and like a boys and girls club. So I think that was pretty helpful. That lasted all of high school, and we actually had some people when we graduated that we passed that off to. So I think that was something that I talked about in my apps quite a bit. Another thing is after my 11th grade in the summer, I applied to a program at MIT. So MIT has an office of diversity and I don't know, like minority education. And they host a couple different summer programs. And the one I did was called E2. It was like coming onto the campus for 1 week in the summer, and you can take a class and you kind of do like a project. So we made like bottle rockets, which is a lot of fun. But I think having that like on-campus experience, which I admit is a little hard to do now given COVID, is pretty helpful for you to figure out where you want to go and kind of express that you know that you want to go to that school. So when you're applying, I think it's really helpful to look into the school's programs and specifically talk about like why you want to go there, just beyond the fact that it's a good school. Yeah.
Thank you. More great advice. All right, Matthew, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I guess first I'd have to just echo what everyone else has been saying, and I think it's pretty clear that if you're like a high school student looking to do extracurriculars, like you'll do much better if you find things that are like impactful, but also like things that you find fun. It's not only like will the admissions officers maybe like see through stuff you do just for college, but like it's just like in general like poor strategy to like waste energy doing something that takes a lot of energy for you to do and that you don't really feel like you're getting much out of it. Yeah, I guess I'll speak sort of from my experience. So like I was fairly like CS focused, and I think there's some challenges that come with that. Like as an applicant, I think it's honestly fairly difficult to find stuff to do. So there's competitive programming, which I did do, but was sort of mediocre at, to be honest. Hackathons, I think, are really fun. And you get to like, you get to compete with people. You get to have fun building something, win prizes if you can. Like that's all really fun. I didn't do science fair. I know some people do like CS projects and stuff for science fair. One thing that that I did was find some open source projects to contribute to. I don't know if this actually looks great on applications, but it's at least an interesting thing to do. And if you're in high school, it's often hard to like get your code reviewed by people and like learn from learn from experts, be able to say like, here's my contribution to this project, and then get feedback back. So like open source projects or internships are, I guess, the ways to do that. Regarding internships, I didn't have any. I know people who did. It honestly, from people I've talked to, it seems like these are much harder to get for high school students in Canada. Not sure the exact reason for that, but maybe it has to do with like employment law. US is generally more permissive to the employers. It's not impossible. So I know people who have worked at Shopify in high school and here at Hootsuite in Vancouver. So those are options. But I don't think they're strictly necessary or anything to stress about. Yeah, I think I also did a fair amount of personal projects. I think it takes some work to like contextualize these, especially for me, because like there are things that I spent a ton of time on. So I wanted to like make sure that they had a place in my application. I think like any sort of like validation is good. So like hackathon wins are useful if they're at a hackathon. Any sort of like user metrics, even if it's like my 10 friends are using this piece of software I made and they're using it every day. That's useful. If you can get like a lot of users or revenue, that's probably like the holy grail. I wasn't in that category, but I've met people who have been, and obviously that's very good for their application. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this thing. Just like, I'll echo what I said at the start, just like be genuine, try to find things that give you energy. Those will be lower cost for you to do versus things that drain you of energy.
All right, last but not least, Wendy.
Yeah, so reiterating that sentiment, you know, it's really important when you're doing stuff to be genuine and to be continuous in your activities. And for me, when I was, you know, volunteering and finding what extracurriculars I wanted to do, I put the focus on myself because, you know, through these extracurriculars, I wanted to grow as a person. I didn't just want to do this for to put it on paper to apply to apply to schools. Like that wasn't the most important for me. I really wanted to build myself. So in high school, I would say I mainly focused on leadership, community service, and a little bit of research and science and kind of like creativity. So in terms of leadership, I did a lot of Model UN, and it was also a really great way for me to practice my public speaking. So that was really great. And the most significant, I would say, leadership activity that I did in high school was I was a chief operating officer for this nonprofit organization called Social Diversity for Children. So ever since I was really young, I have always been interested in disability awareness. So through that organization, I was able to gain a lot of leadership skills. I was able to plan a lot of benefit concerts, reach out to the community, and talk to a lot of people. And I think that during that experience, I grew a lot. And so for community service, that was a part of it. My volunteer work with Social Diversity for Children, but I also just volunteered in my nearby neighborhood. So I volunteered with Burnaby Neighborhood House, and I went to senior homes. I went to facilitate after school children workshops, and it was a lot of fun. And the last one, for science, I was chosen to be a part of Future Science Leaders in British Columbia. So it was every week I attended this kind of workshop with a bunch of students, and we had our own like, research projects, and it was really exciting. So I would say, you know, try out a bunch of things, you know, try a spectrum of things in high school. I think that's when you really can explore. And I think one thing that I do want to emphasize is while you're volunteering, while you're thinking about what you want to do, you should make sure that you're going to, try to craft a narrative. I think when you're applying and writing your applications, it's really important to tell a story through your application. You don't want it to be a laundry list of things you're doing, because admission officers don't want to see that. They want to see a story of how you started off your life, how you decided where you want to go, and eventually why you want to go to that particular school. So I think it's also really important when you're doing volunteering or anything like that to write down stories that you see, stories that you experience. These tiny moments will make a huge difference in your application, and will also make a huge difference in you as a person.
Wow, Wendy, that is a phenomenal perspective on the application process. Thank you very much. All right, one more question before we head into breakout rooms here. What kinds of financial aid and opportunities are available at your guys' universities? Scholarships, co-ops, internships, financial programs, anything that can help people apply with financial limitations. And before we start there, Eric, I know you have limited time with us, so try and get your answer out as quick as possible, or if you need to go, you're
sure.
on
I think
the hook.
As for that point, I can stay till 7, so I can answer a few questions in the breakout room, actually. Anyway, for financial aid, I think Harvard is entirely need-based. I'm not aware of too many merit programs that are localized within the college. And so, if you have financial need, Harvard says they're need blind, especially for international students, because some colleges say they're need blind for domestic students, but do consider need for international students. I do not believe Harvard, at least openly, acts in such a way. They are need blind for anybody who applies. And so, to actually apply for financial aid, you need to fill out this thing called, offered by the College Board. I can't quite remember what it's called, CSS profile, I believe. And you submit that along with your Common App or a few weeks after. And they'll take care of everything if you get admitted. The point being that you really don't have to worry about financial aid for many colleges, should you take the initiative to apply. I guess for other funding opportunities, as if most universities, there's an office for, of course, professional development. There are a bunch of different awards that I'm aware of. Obviously, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but there are many stipends given for research, should you want to pursue that during your undergraduate education. There are also some awards and fellowships that are offered in that sense. And also, typically, in the usual year, you'd also be given some funding to study abroad, should you apply to those sorts of programs. But of course, that might not happen this year. But I think with all colleges and universities, Harvard's no exception. Their financial aid program is pretty robust, and they've also got a bunch of opportunities for different on-campus employment opportunities, and also fellowships and awards while you're at it.
Well, thank you, Eric. I'm sure that breaks the stereotype of Harvard not being a very accessible university. Thank you very much. All right, now Isha.
Yeah, so I want to be completely honest. Berkeley is a bit of a different situation because Berkeley is a public university. It's not a private university. So I would say 70% of the students at Berkeley are from California, about 20% are out of state, and then 10% of us are international. So the percentage of international students and acceptance rates are a lot lower, and aid is typically offered to California residents in terms of financial aid from the university. However, there are a ton of opportunities for you to reduce the cost of you being at Berkeley. I personally am involved with 2 different ones. So first off, I'm a resident assistant in the dorms at Berkeley. You're kind of like a guide in the dorms, and you help out freshmen with like moving in and just making sure like things are in control in the dorms. And with that, the university pays for my housing and all my board and meals and whatnot. So that way I've reduced about $24,000 a year from my expenses. So that's one thing. And secondly, on-campus jobs, As an international student, you can work on campus as part of your visa. So I work on campus as a campus ambassador. I literally get paid to talk about my university, which is pretty awesome, to prospective students. And that way I kind of cover any living expenses or any other things I need, my Spotify prescription, stuff like that. And so that way my parents are just funding my tuition and don't have to worry about my stuff, like other things like my housing and whatnot when I'm at Berkeley. And then in addition to that, next year, in my senior year, I'm most likely going to be a UGSI. So that's like a undergraduate student instructor for a class that you like did well in. And so if you take on that role, the university reimburses a fairly significant amount of your tuition. And so I will be like saving, I don't know, like $30-ish thousand more of tuition from that. So there's a lot of things that you can do. If you're at a public university, you kind of have to go on these routes. You simply will not get financial aid that is need-based, even if you do need it, to be completely honest. But yeah, I hope that helps. And I'm sure these opportunities are available like at private universities too, if you don't qualify for aid for whatever reason.
Thank you, Isha. Once again, colleges are becoming more and more accessible. That is amazing. All right, Dongjun, how is MIT with financial aid?
Yeah, so MIT is completely need-based. There's no merit-based scholarships here. And I think they do cover like most people. Majority of the school gets some sort of financial aid. A lot of people are on full financial aid. So you don't pay anything. You'll actually get a slight refund for living expenses if you're on full financial aid. And then on top of that, there's also work opportunities on campus. So you can do research even as a freshman, which pays like $13 an hour, 14. You can get a job as a TA or a lab assistant. Pays a little bit better than research. And those are also like pretty easy to get, as well as a lot of like other random jobs around campus. Like you can work at a desk or the gym and whatnot. And then some other special opportunities might be like last semester, I actually had the opportunity to teach undergrad seminar. So like plan my own course and taught some people like about aerospace engineering. And that actually paid like pretty well. So lots of opportunities to get aid as well as work jobs that pay decent.
That is really good to know. Amazing. Matthew, what about Stanford?
Yeah, I think the first thing I should say is that, I mean, you know, all the panelists, I don't know them, but they all seem fairly nice and trustworthy, but please don't take anything we say here at face value. Like things might have changed since we applied. We also just like don't have the full picture. So like definitely check school websites and like you can like call them up too. If you're like, you know, for like very, you know, like that's a source of truth that you should go to. As far as I know, I think like Stanford's fairly similar to Harvard and MIT. So pretty much everything like Eric and Dongjun, everything they said, it applies. So like full need, not much merit-based scholarships like given at the school, if any. I won't really rehash all that sort of stuff. I think one thing is that at least when I was applying, Stanford was need aware for internationals. At least that was my impression. It might have changed. It might not have. I think that doesn't mean like don't apply. I know, you know, tons of international students do get aid, but I guess it's something to consider maybe. Definitely double check that though. Yeah, like just as everyone else said, lots of opportunities to make money on campus. I think the Bay Area sort of minimum wage is a little bit higher, so you might be making a little bit more, but that doesn't really matter. TAing, there's like section leading, which is like every department of the school calls like TAing something else. It's all the same. You can be an RA at the dorm, tour guides, that sort of stuff, research. Yeah, I know Avinash mentioned co-ops. Like there's no like formal co-op system. Internships are fairly plentiful though. At least that's what it seems to be. And I think being an international student means that you can work in the States in the summer under something called CPT. So you're able to do the internships in the States, which are usually like generally pay a little bit more, at least in my experience. But yeah, that's kind of situation dependent.
Gotcha. Well, definitely there are opportunities out there. Wendy, what about you?
Yeah, so when I applied to Hopkins, Hopkins was also need aware. So applying as an international, I ended up not applying to financial aid. And thankfully, I'm really grateful for my parents for being able to support me all this time. But there are definitely financial aid opportunities available. I know Hopkins has become need blind, so that's definitely helpful. Hopkins has merit-based scholarships and also need-based scholarships. And like everybody before me said, these are pretty accessible. You can apply to them. But for me also, I looked at some scholarships in Vancouver because, I didn't really want to just rely on Hopkins because I didn't even know if I was going to get in. So I looked at a lot of scholarships in Vancouver and applied to those, and then eventually got a bunch of them in May. So I was able to use them towards my tuition. And at Hopkins, there are a lot of definitely opportunities to work. So I worked as a peer-led team learning leader. So I helped undergraduate students with some of their courses. So I worked for that, once a week. And I also worked in research. So I thought research was a really great way to earn money because the hourly wage is around $12. And then I worked maybe 6 to 7 hours a week. So it was really beneficial. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities to work, and also for financial aid. It just, you need to take some research and then just take the opportunities. There's no hurting you when you're applying to scholarships and stuff. The worst that can happen is you don't get it, but the best that can happen is you get some money towards your tuition.
Thank you very much, Wendy. All right, now you wrapped us up there. Now it is time to break out into our specific breakout rooms. Now, there is a document with all of the links on there, and if you don't have it, we can resend it for you. But go ahead and identify which panelists you want to go have a chat with, and then they will answer your questions as best as they can in the time we have. All right, guys, I will see you guys soon.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming, guys. Like Avinash said, we're now starting our breakout room. So I just sent the link into the chat. And if you would like to stay for the MIT program with Dongjun, then you can just stay right here in this meeting.
So how are these breakout rooms going to work? Is it just like...
So all the participants who are here with us, they're going to be typing their questions in the chat, and you will ideally answer them in the time we have here. So guys, if you have any questions for Dongjun, MIT, the application process, as he said, he's open and ready for your questions.
How do you apply? So MIT is not a part of the Common App, which most colleges are. So you do have to go to the MIT admissions website and fill out the application there. I think there's like 5 short essays instead of like the 1 long essay for Common App. And they're all like around like 200, 300 words. So they ask you about like your interest and what you want to do in college. But yeah, you can find all of that on the MIT admissions website, which I think you can get on Google. Let's see. What's one thing you did in high school that you really influenced your acceptance? So I guess if I had to pick one thing, I think I was actually really lucky in getting into the E2 program, which was hosted at MIT. And I actually think that program is non-existent anymore. They've combined it with like this thing called MITES, which is like a minority like engineering something. I don't know what the acronym stands for. But that gave me an opportunity to come to MIT in high school and experience the campus, take some like kind of classes and do a project. So then when I actually applied, I could really like express why I wanted to come to MIT, and I think that really helped. So yeah, that's I think something that was pretty helpful. So try to find like interesting things to do like that, something you're passionate about. How did I decide on aerospace? I mean, I don't know, like I thought airplanes were cool in high school. I was like, huh, seems like something fun to work on. And I actually really enjoyed physics classes in high school. I thought it was kind of cool, like you could learn how things move and like how the world works essentially. So when I came to MIT, freshman year, most of your classes are going to be general classes. So a couple of humanities, you might do like basic like calculus or like take some science classes like chemistry, biology, physics. And then sophomore year is usually when you really start getting into your major. And aerospace at MIT actually has this thing called like unified engineering, which is like you just kind of get all the disciplines of aerospace like thrown at you in sophomore year. And I guess like I liked it enough, so I just stuck with it. And over the years here, I've done like research with like aircraft design. I've worked in industry like at Boeing, where I worked on like, I don't know, like new airplanes for the future. So it's a cool field, and I think it's a lot of fun. Personal projects or class facilitated projects. So last semester, so like last spring, I took the aerospace capstone, or one of the capstones, which was aircraft design. We partnered with like an environment professor at Harvard. He wanted an aircraft that can survey like the atmosphere at 60,000 feet. So like it's like the stratosphere. And for reference, like most airplanes fly at 30,000 feet. So it's like about double the height of what your commercial airplanes will go. So the class was essentially doing a conceptual design of that aircraft. And specifically, I worked on designing the propellers, which is a lot of fun. And this semester, I'm taking a couple project-based classes in the CS department. So one of them I'm making, it's like an electronics class basically. And I'm making something you can plug your electric guitar into, and it'll be like a amplifier with like effects. So I think that's going to be cool. And then another class I'm taking this semester is a music/CS class. So the person that teaches it is actually the person that like created Guitar Hero, like the game, which I'm sure a lot of you know. And a lot of the P-sets and labs we did were kind of like studying the interaction of like computer and people. And the intersection of that with music. And the final project that I'm working on is actually with this Leap controller. So it's like an IR camera that tracks your hand position. And by like tracking where your hands are, I'm working on a project that you can kind of conduct like a jazz band. So should be fun. Any other questions? I mean, while I wait for more questions, I can talk about something that's interesting at MIT. I don't know if you guys know much about our school, but we have a really big dorm culture where each dorm has like its own, this is kind of answering Victoria's question, but each dorm has its little like quirks. And I actually was part of a dorm that's temporarily closed, but it was called Burton Connor. All of our rooms are laid out like suite style, so it's like 5 or 6 singles and then like 1 bathroom and a kitchen. So like during my past 3 years, I like cooked instead of going to the dining hall, which is nice. And you kind of live in a really tight-knit community with the people in your suite on your floor. And a lot of people tend to stay in that same dorm for all 4 years of their undergrad. So that's pretty fun. And then another thing about MIT is like, we have these things called hacks where people basically climb on top of like random buildings. Like we have a really big dome and it's not too hard to get on top of that dome and look over like Boston and the campus. A lot of like random quirks about MIT. In doing any competitions? Not really any competitions. At the start of the semester, I was actually a part of a program with UC Berkeley because I have a couple of friends from high school that went there, and we worked on a tech startup over the summer, and we got into one of their accelerator programs where you like meet with a bunch of industry mentors. That was a lot of fun, but I guess a little bit less relevant to our discussion at college. Courses for aerospace in first year. Most people don't really take aerospace classes in the first year, just because like the engineering discipline itself requires a lot of prerequisites. Like you need to have a solid foundation of calculus, differential equations, and then like probably physics. So a lot of first years will just take like those general classes, and then in sophomore year you'll really start diving into aerospace. And aerospace is a really like interdisciplinary subject because like you could do structures, you can do aerodynamics, you can do controls. So there are a lot of different aspects of aerospace. So first year you do your general classes. Second year you kind of get an intro to all the different disciplines of aerospace, and then after that you kind of get an opportunity to dive really deep into parts of aerospace that you think are cool. So I really enjoyed like aerodynamics and controls, for example. So taking a couple more classes of that. Transition into first year, I think that's a different experience for everyone. When I first came to MIT, I was a little scared. I mean, definitely like this university has a lot of like name recognition as being like hard, scary or whatever. So I did feel a little scared, but I think they really try to make the transition feel easy. So your first semester at MIT is actually not graded. You're graded on a pass no record system. So either you pass those classes or it's not even on your record. So that's really helpful. A lot of people in freshman fall will just kind of like, I don't know, get to know other people, go explore Boston, and you don't really have to try too hard on your classes. So they really do a lot to make first years feel like they're okay. And we have this resource on campus called S Cubed, where if you're having any issues like personal or health or whatever, you can just kind of have them talk to your professors on your behalf to get extensions on PSETs and exams and whatnot. And a lot of professors are just in general pretty chill about like getting stuff done. Like if you're late, you can just talk to them and they'll give you extensions and whatnot. So they really do make the transition painless as much as possible. If I could go back to high school, what would I do different? So personally, like my high school was a public high school, but it was pretty competitive. And I definitely had friends and peers that were not really willing to talk about what they're doing for college and what's on their apps. And that does get a little bit toxic, to be honest. And it's not a good way to like foster good friendships in high school. So I would say like getting into college is not a competition. Like don't worry about what other people are doing, just focus on what you're doing. Because if you're really passionate about something and you can show that like you want to go there and you think you'll do well there, it doesn't matter like if your peers are getting into that school or not. Like for example, I think my high school had no one come to MIT before my year. But when we applied, like both me and my friend got into MIT, and it was like the first for like our high school ever. So like, like just don't worry about what your friends are doing. Like you're not judged against other people. One piece of advice that changed your perspective. I guess like this is something that I see like quite a bit at MIT too, because like admittedly it is hard to just go through all your classes like PSETs and like exams and all that. Just try to I guess like the advice is try to find something you really enjoy and you're not doing just for the sake of doing, because like you'll get burnout really quickly if you do that. Like freshman year when I was taking all those like random classes that I was required to, I wasn't really enjoying school as much as like now. I kind of know what I want to do in college and after college a little bit better. So I've taken like classes that are more interesting. For example, I really enjoy music, so I've like played in the orchestra for a couple of years, and now like I'm in a couple of classes that are, it's like the intersection of music and CS, which is just fun. Like it does take time, but it's time that you enjoy. So just do life by finding things you enjoy. Why aren't students graded freshman year? So that's not just all of freshman year. It's just your first semester, the fall semester. But I think MIT is just trying to really like make it easy for high school students to transition into college. So I mean, it definitely helps that you don't have to worry about getting an A the first time you're at MIT, because it definitely is overwhelming. Like if you're coming out of town, like you're in a new place, you don't know a lot of people, you're not at home anymore. And it does take off a lot of stress when your classes are not graded and you can just do whatever. And I think they actually changed the policy. So some of the general classes that you're required to take, which MIT like requires like chemistry and biology, physics, math, calculus. And I think they changed the policy so that now if you take those after your freshman fall, they're still not graded. Like you can take it on pass no record. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a couple more questions, and then that's going to wrap up our breakout room session with Dongjun here. And that link Samantha just posted in the chat is our feedback form. So after the breakout room, after you guys leave, we would greatly appreciate it if you guys filled that out for us. It really helps us tune these for our audience.
Yeah, cool. Plans after graduating. That's a good question. So I know I want to do aerospace, and specifically I want to work in the commercial sector. But right now, given COVID, like the economy is pretty screwed up. And I think like as an MIT student, it's jobs are a little bit more accessible, given that like you kind of have the name recognition of your school. But like I've reached out to people that I've worked with in the past, and for example, Boeing is like the biggest commercial aerospace company in the United States, and a lot of their commercial division departments are just not hiring, given that like they're just going through a lot of layoffs. So I am looking into graduate school, probably go for a master's, possibly a PhD. Yeah, and I've applied to MIT for PhD, and also looking at Georgia Tech and Stanford, which all have like pretty good programs. So yeah, still not completely sure, but it's probably what I'll do. Yeah.
All right, Dongjun, thank you so much for taking out the time out of your day to come here and help us with both advice, tips, and your personal experiences. I for sure appreciated it, and I hope everybody else did as well. Thank you all for attending the breakout room and the webinar. We had over 260 participants between the two panelists, and it's just been a great experience having you all here to share our opportunities, our information, and our friends with. Thank you all once again, and hope you guys have a great Halloween, and best of luck on applying to colleges.
Yeah, cool. And I'm just gonna add, like, since there's not too many people here, you like feel free to find me on LinkedIn, and like shoot me a message if you have any other questions. Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Thank you, everybody.